Right, Summoning Insight has returned. By the way, as I've made clear at this point in time, even though I came up with the concept of Summoning Insight, I came up with the name, I even was the original host, if you remember back in the day, and I used to get all the guests and book the show, and basically I did everything. Monty just turned up and went, rotations and a train whistle or something. Actually, he did way more than that, but I'm going to pretend that's all he did, and then wait for me to go, the moves, I don't know, wait, that was Dora. Anyway, the point is, now Monty runs everything from behind the scenes like some shadowy puppet master, and not only does he tell me we have to start with all the spicy topics, but he's even arranged what I think is a really awkward transition episode where it's like I already think it's bad enough in the modern day because of therapy talk where people do this mad shit like they're going to divorce someone, so you have one last meal to be like, well, it was great time. I think that's weird anyway, but now I'm doing a meal where my old ex that's coming back is there as well, and we're having some group buffet.
Am I not good enough for you, Thorin? Why am I here? Am I not good enough for you? Why you bring me on last time?
Well, here's the thing. Technically, if you want a literal answer, I know that was a rhetorical question. The real reason you're here is because Nemesis had to go for that yawn play under the fucking tower.
Oh, right, yeah.
If he hadn't, you'd just be here every week for what I was saying you about was you'd be here for a few more weeks. It's not my fault, bro. And I thought I'd just immediately welcome Yamato back because you have to understand, Yamato's already had all those Autotronis fans like, wait a minute, but Yamato's our coach, but he does a show with Thorin. What the fuck is going on?
You're telling me that not only is Cadril and his team killing the broadcast, it's killing my work off of broadcast now too. It's another job gone. The hell, man? You got some stuff to answer for you, man.
And now even Los Ratones members feel entitled to just be on everything to do with the LEC, on Summoning Insight episodes, and just on everything. Buy your own spot, guys. Make your own show. That's what I say.
It's good to be back.
Yeah, listen. It wasn't going to be a warm welcome. It's like, all right, you're back. Okay, get on with it then.
Yeah, bro, I joined the call. We have like this green room, let's say, and it's like just empty. Thorin doesn't even ask me how I'm doing, nothing. Nope. And I'm like, okay, so what kind of gut punch does he have planned? But you start off light. I expect more.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Luckily, we won't start off on LEC stuff, and we already wrapped up the end of the season anyway, so the timing's good. But actually, low-key, I feel like drama outside of the server has overshadowed that, we basically just had one of the craziest upsets in the history of League of Legends just happen, which is, I'll remind people, no matter how bad on paper any past T1 roster was, you have to go back to the one bad year of 2018 to find them actually losing to nobody's. And even then, that used to be in the regular season and the playoffs. They still used to bullshit their way through all those first rounds of the things and usually get to third or fourth or at worst, if not make the final. This result where T1 has lost to Fearx, to just put this in context, we were discussing on last week's episode, is T1 just going to be the winner of LCK, the best team in the world? Now we're in a world where it's not even before the Corpium of Fearx was supposed to be Diable is pretty sick, but they've sort of overperformed this split. It's the playoffs now. It's T1. If anything, T1 was looking pretty awesome coming into this portion. Now they've actually not only lost, bro, they lost fairly convincingly, actually. That was a fucking insane series. So where are we starting, boys? Obviously on this one, figure out amongst yourselves. We're not going to go call by name. We're just going to figure out a way to all coexist.
Yeah, it's going to be an absolute scrum. Okay, all right.
We'll do what we can.
Playing it diplomatically, Yamato, I see. So I'll start this one off. Yeah, I thought that this was going to be, and I was pretty clear about this on the last episode as well, that I thought it was going to be pretty much a 3-tier situation in play. So you had quite clearly T1 Gen.G, then quite clearly Fearx and DPLUS here, and then we had just the rest, right? You had the other teams which made it into the bracket. Obviously, that's not the case. So we have to start deconstructing, well, how the hell did Fearx manage to apparently punch above their weights to T1? And was it T1's failings? Was it Fearx's successes? And as reality has it, tends to be a bit of a healthy amount of each. I think the first thing which I'll say is that I think that for the positives from Fearx, I think their drafts were really solid this series. I don't see that many teams having powerful flex picks to change away matchups. I think particularly in the game 3, flexing the Rise up towards top lane to escape the Anivia matchup. Yes, it did go into the cannon, which can sometimes be a bit spooky, and it did end up being a bit spooky in that game, but it allowed VicLa to have a Yone angle, escape the Anivia matchup for the Rise, and that's amongst other things which happened in that game where I thought, on the whole, Fearx did outdraft T1 to the point where Coma, I think, had an interview saying that we weren't just inting drafting or experimenting, we just thought we were picking the best stuff. If you thought you were picking the best stuff and you got outdrafted that heavily, I think, across the series, that's quite a big issue. So that was probably my big positive from Fearx. But on the other side, Faker had an interview, and I don't know whether this was before this series or after. I'm going to imagine it was before, where they were saying, look, it's not about playing aggressively or defensively. It's about playing towards people's comfort styles. And we've really tried to play towards FaZe's comfort style and to really enable him. Now, I want you to look back at game 1 from that series, where every time FaZe tries to farm anything, immediate Pantheon ult, immediate jumping on his head. And what you'll notice in those times is Keria is just out of position to get the Lantern. In fact, there are points where he has to flash over to get the Lantern in place to try and save him, or Owner's not there to see the play as well. And on the whole, Fearx were much more poised on the map to make a play, whereas T1 were not protecting this Jinx and a Jinx Thresh composition, which I thought was really, really telling of how parts of the rest of the series would go. I don't actually think T1 were that connected between FaZe and Keria as a duo. So there's my 2 big points. 1 negative, 1 positive.
Yeah, on my side, the big difference was just it kind of reminded me of KT versus GenG at the World Championship. Like in terms of how they drafted their bot lane matchups, like the only game T1 had anything to offer really was when they got the first pick Varus, which really streamlines your process. I think that game, like Faker was playing well on the Silas as well, so the game became easy. But it's just like the matchups they were put in were so strange. Like they were playing Jhin Rakan, and that game was just miserable. Like that game, Pace finished his quest at 19 minutes, and I don't think I've ever seen that in an LCK game. Like 19 minutes to finish this quest. He roamed top because bot was just completely abandoned because of the state of jungle, and picking like Jinx Trash and Aphelios Lulu. These are all matchups that are hard. And at the same time, I have to say, Kellen, like Raptor was smurfing him getting the MVP perfectly fine, but I have to say it's way more impressive to me when a bot lane outperforms this bot lane. When it's Keria and FaZe with what they've shown so far, and Keria with the separation we put Keria between him and everybody else is not the same as in any other role. In any other role, there are like players that can come up in the conversations. Like we have Chovy there that always tops the stats on night and in the LPL, but there's like players that are right below. Keria had nobody, and Kellen just was better in this series. He played the range matchups really well. The Lulu team fighting, absolutely insane. And I think it just ties into the draft identity too. I think that in terms of the idea of how T1 want to draft, I felt like they were kind of layers behind, because when they were shown the Ashe Seraphine blind, they didn't know how to respond. And I don't think they kept up at all in terms of what the next evolutions were, in terms of what they need to pick. I think that this is a series that I think if it's played again, I still think T1 should be favored, because I do think a lot of the traps in draft that they fell into are kind of traps that you only fall into once. It's like the Ryze flex only works because you blind pick Kennen top, so you can send the Ryze top to then play the Anivia. If you blind pick something else, Ryze top is going to look worse, and you're not, in a position to have that same level of luxury. So these are drafts that you can only do once, and I imagine the T1 in a potential rematch that I expect is going to happen, because I don't see BFX beating GenG. I think T1 should beat them. That's where I'm at.
No, what's crazy as well for me is it was only last week I saw this team go 5 games with DN Supers, who I refuse to believe ever are actually good at League of Legends. They're just eyed, and their name brings them down 20% of aura value. So it's already nuts that they have like a better series against T1. Also, I do agree, by the way, like if you play this match again, I mean, T1 could have won the first 2 games. The problem is, though, the last 2 games, fucking Fearx was the one that had the pedal to the metal. They were insane. And I'll throw this out there as well. Look, the Diable guy obviously is just fucking nuts. He's like beyond, look, he's not a rookie, but he's beyond like revelation of the year. He already was pretty decent at the end of last year, but he has just been smurfing this whole split. But more than that, mate, if you think about how narratives work in League, where the joke is in our region of Europe, like you get doomed if you have one bad year in LEC or one bad split. Mate, if you remember, fans who only ever saw VicLa play on FlyQuest will assume this guy was the biggest bomb ever. Mate, he was actually for real, like, not only this split having massive games, he did pretty well in this series too. Like, this guy's had a complete narrative turnaround. It's nuts. It's not just only their ADC that's good.
It's pretty hard to name series where so many players on T1 were just straight out valued by their opposing number to this level. Because, you've mentioned Kellen and Keria, and yeah, that's really notable. Probably second in there for me is Raptor and Owner, though, because I think Owner, over the course of last year, was absolutely solid top 3 for the entirety of the year. And that was with the rest of T1 starting to stumble a little bit. Raptor, I think, is perhaps slept on a little bit, but then you come into a series like this and you still don't expect him to demolish in the way that he did. Now, part of that is matchups as well, and they're kind of inextricably linked. When you've got, Trundle into Malphite, and the Malphite's the sole kind of like person who really wants to go in onto the enemy team, there's definitely some issues with that kind of thing. I suppose the Nautilus is there too, but it's the same kind of issue where Raptor just kind of tears them apart. But you just look at the way that he...
By the way, guys, I want to know, I'm going to call out casters now, because normally casters see the really obvious low-hanging fruit. In fact, some would say, if you're being rude, I used to be an analyst my whole career, so fuck casters. All casters do is fucking pick low-hanging fruit. Like, the joke is, when they don't get any work, they probably go and literally just pick fruit in real life. It's probably all they know how to do. Oh, they shit all the 1, 2, 3. Oh, it's got the triple, the hat trick. It's all the shit, right? How have you all missed this angle? There's a motherfucker who plays jungle called Raptor, and literally, when he does a good job, he's opening doors for people. Think about it. Jurassic Park, it's right there. He was hanging there the whole time.
Every time he's engaged, it's just like clever girl. Funnily enough, there was a segment. I
welcome back, Yamato. That's the sort of analysis we do on this show, motherfucker. So, we're Spike, we're trying to
out of the loop of the references already, bro. Like fucking Jurassic Park.
All right, yeah.
Dude, I pitched, because remember there was that Jurassic World movie that came out in like 22, 23. I pitched a fucking segment to the LEC, which I missed the window on it, but I wanted them to do like a segment based on all the old players coming back to LEC, where you had you had like Velociraptor, he's been around for a while, and you had like I didn't think of a dinosaur for Chachi, but I wanted there to be just that scene of like just like claw ticking on the keyboard, just clicking like the R key. And there's this one bit where it's like, oh, why is he just eating food directly off the dinner table? It's like, oh, back in the day we didn't even have plates. That's all we had back then. It's a fucking great series. And they
bring it back all dinosaurs. I will play the role of that cool ass hunter guy, because I would have my own scene where finally Froggen actually side lanes and then kills someone from the side lane in a gag, and I go, clever girl, because he finally learned how to leave mid lane. There you go. That would be the fucking. That's the deep
infinite potential. And then at the end of the segment, it's like, well, this felt a bit pointless. It's just an unnecessary sequel, like every other Jurassic movie at this point.
Indeed. Okay.
Well,
anyway,
I let you guys have your moment, bro. Like,
go on.
Thanks.
Go on. True.
But it's perfect time for me to just say the latest Jurassic Park movie. I haven't followed this genre at all. But the latest movie pisses me off, because let me just tell you, the first 5 minutes, this is a tangent, but I have to get it out of my system. The first 5 minutes, the entire movie is triggered by someone eating a Snickers and then dropping the wrapper on the floor, and it goes.
Is this not product placement? Is that the premise?
Right.
It goes into the vent, and it just breaks down the secret Area 51 like facility.
Oh, give me a break.
T-Rex comes out, and then every main character has a snack. Like that guy's eating the Skittles. This guy's eating. It's just a fucking ad placement for candy. There's just everything. The premise is this rapper, bro.
Just because it is one thing that does annoy me. If people don't know, that is actually the scene we're even referencing, the famous Raptor one, is actually one of the scenes in the movie Jurassic Park that actually isn't as good. Because if you've ever read the book, that doesn't happen at all. That character actually is one of the characters who survives. He's like a really badass, like big game hunter guy who's like who understands the dinosaur. So even though that's like an iconic moment in the film, that's actually a bit cheap. Actually, the way they do his character in the book's way cooler. Like essentially, as far as I remember, I think the one in the sequel that was actually the same character, but they had to make it a different person because he died in the first movie. If you remember, there was a guy in the second film who was like a cool ass guy who also like all that shit. So anyway, that's just whatever. That's one of those nerd things. Right, back to this series though. I said, look, I don't think anyone could. This is the problem with how good Korea is. No one's now going to go, Fearx is going to win the split. But this way, that I do notice that no longer, if you go and look when they're playing GenG, for example, normally that would be an impossible series to get anything on any side of. Like actually right now, it's not total. Essentially, people are dreaming, can Fearx beat GenG? Is it possible? The more important question is this. Here's the actual homework, boys. What would they have to do to beat GenG? Is there a blueprint that you've seen from wins so far that they could do it?
Honestly, the angle is, if anything, is that like GenG in their series that they played, like Keen looked rough. Like Keen looking rough hasn't happened in like years. The last time I saw him look rough was like KT Worlds when they played against Bilibili or something, where it looked like, which is ages ago. Like Keen looking rough is a very unique one. But like top laners have kind of been all over the place, and if they show any kind of signs of inconsistencies, I think it's very tough. But my main issue, the hard part to overcome, is that Faker is not overwhelming in lane. Like he shows his strength as the game progresses. I think to qualify to play against GenG is a completely different ball game because the early game is just so tough to overcome. I think that BFX got opportunities, executed on those opportunities super well, and I think that against GenG, just to get into the game is so much harder. I think lane against Chovy, the pressure that you get from mid lane and how that bleeds into everything else, I think is going to be so hard to overcome. I would be very surprised at this point if BFX is going to win a game, but if there's any angle, it has to be through draft leverage again. Like if they can find ways to make their mid matchups sway heavily towards VicLa, that's less of a void, I think they can find ways to connect into the game. But I think the key, if anything, is their bot lane. If they can get good matchups there and bleed that into jungle and then save VicLa from the hell that is Chovy, maybe. But I think that they've revealed their hand, I think, against T1. So I think that the prep becomes so much easier for GenG now in terms of the champions they need to be wary of when they come into draft.
Yeah, the easy answer is bot lane because you tie up 2 people, not 1, if you win the lane. So if you end up playing towards these Enchanter, very dominant bot lanes to the Ashe Seraphine, which I'm so surprised that T1 didn't have awareness or an answer to that, by the way, because this has been coming up everywhere in the last week or so. I mean, we've seen it blind picked all over the LPL. We've seen it bits of places in the LCK.
They played it at Worlds last year, you know?
Exactly.
Like...
You know, this hasn't just come out of nowhere. This has been around for a while. It's not like some real hidden tech. Like, I mean, the Ryze top lane, it's been played a little bit in the LCK, right? But it's not, I wouldn't say that's something which you'd expect as much kind of hanging around in the draft. The Ashe Seraphine, I think you do have to worry about that, particularly because that was in game 3 at that point. A couple of the other real priority AD carries have been out of the pool. So I think you're hoping for like a lane dominant Enchanter bot lane, because obviously, as you're saying, Kellen looks a lot better on the Enchanters, and it empowers Diable to just go fucking psycho. You also need to hope that VicLa plays the way that he did against Chovy in the regular season best of that they played against them, where VicLa was actually solo killing Chovy. That's a hard ask, because getting 1 over on Chovy in one series, sure, occasionally players can do that. It's fairly rare, but you can occasionally get your solo kills and get some pressure onto him. But you're going to hope that you're going to get a competitive matchup there and have just VicLa perform the way he was in regular season. Because I actually think the last 2 series from VicLa have been a little lacking compared to what he was in regular season. You know, you look at the Twisted Fate game in game 4 was pretty okay from him, but even then he was like flashing forward for some awkward gold cards even in that game. The Yone game was helped out by the matchup which he had. Obviously he got a little bit dumpstered by Faker on the Sylas individually. He had to outplay. It's a difficult matchup for the Ahri, but VicLa needs to have a really good individual performance, because I think in draft you're probably only going to be able to cover for one super dominant lane. I don't think you're going to be able to buy a good matchup for both mid and bot. And of course, this is also depending on just top lane just going well as well. This is the problem with playing against GenG. They just have too many matchups which can just explode out of control, and their players turn up on the day and things just go to shit from that point. Especially regionally, people just don't, I think, respect, especially if you're coming in from people that, you know, they tune in for the highlights, they come out of Worlds and say, oh, well, you know, GenG, they lost against KT, and there are all these memes about, oh, well, they'll not be good at Worlds again, blah, blah, blah. That just does not dissolve everything that they do domestically, and every single one of these matchups can just completely explode. So yeah, I think you have to probably draft towards competitive mid lane, hope that VicLa outplays, and then try and get that dominant bot lane. And I think probably try and get early 3v3s to just snowball the map before GenG get into this crazy mid-game vision control that they have. They're probably the best team in the world at using Phaelite, so using this kind of reset for the level 6 Scuttle Crab and for junglers, and making sure the HP is topped up for that. If you allow, I actually think if GenG get a solid first 6 minutes of the game, it's already pretty doomed, because they're so good at playing after they get that first little advantage towards Canyon. So you're probably hoping for really dominant bot lane, leverage into a 3v3, just try and explode the game, get Diable ahead.
By the way, speaking of people who also have had career redemptions, how about fucking Kellen? This is a guy, remember, where immediately your brain just thinks of those were the bad days in Damwon, when they went from being the best in the whole world to like, they're like borderline irrelevant unless fucking Canyon and Showmaker could go apeshit. And then after that, you had the whole period where it looked like he just was the like fucking warden of death and just refused to let him play League of Legends. Like, it's actually well, because this is another one of those players, you notice, sadly, it is often Korean supports who get this. Moham, you can pick a fucking million of them that have done this role. If you have the really bad split or year as a Korean support in a top team, mate, you're never allowed to be good again. We made the fucking life guy wait forever as well to have another chance. Like, you just get rid off so hard, because it's another thing. If you'd have told me at the beginning of the year, the Diablo guy is really good, Kellen's going to outperform Carrion, that would seem like absolutely insanity There's no way.
It's the Kellen memories for most NA fans is like how DPLUS gifted the game to to G2,
Oh,
you know?
God, yeah.
True.
The G2,
True.
the G2 hype run because they beat a Korean team, and it's just Kellen being the Christmas man, you know? Like Kellen was the guy who we associated with the suffering of our favorite players.
That's a new one.
Just associate, bro. It's Christmas is over, so we're inventing new shit now.
Yeah, exactly.
It was a side character in Jurassic Park. Nevertheless, fucking. I remember as well, Kellen with Ruler. That was also like, come on, man. Like when Kellen, like Ruler was playing with Kellen and Life, you know, like I don't know what the hell was going on there. But it's cool to see the redemption. You know, I feel like that was the curious part about BFX because they lost their coach Rio to GenG. And then they kept the same roster, and I thought changes are going to happen because last year VicLa was a problem, you know? And the fact that they stuck together and it paid off when almost every piece of information that we had from outside points to you should make changes is very, very impressive. So fair play to BFX, man, sticking to the guns.
I'm trying so hard not to make the obvious, oh, wow, you like teams like that stick together with the same five, even though they probably should have made moves. And, you know, you consider click whatever. I'm trying not to do it too much, I'm going to gradually easy back in the show. It's okay, mate. It's all right.
Just do it, bro.
Well, even rats leave sinking ships, of course.
Okay, there you go.
Man,
I mean, to be fair, I'll give props to Yamato. He did go down with the ship. He also, you know, I don't know whether you sunk it or not, but you know, he did go down with it.
You just see like one of Yone's swords sticking out the side. Yeah,
I did a fine job. Come on now, like it's solid work. Yeah, I'm happy with my work.
It's all good.
I just wanted to throw in one thing about LCK. The last thing is, I don't know how much we're gonna cover the whole LCK, but I just wanted to say Chovy's series against DPLUS, like tying that to GenG versus BFX. Like that's the freaky part about GenG is like one guy can drop the ball and it just somehow just makes someone else better. Because what Chovy did in the series looked like
I'll set it up for you. Here's what we need to do. One, I will say, if someone didn't watch much LCK this season, it actually, as we talked about on past episodes, it was bizarrely one of the more chill Chovy beginnings of the year. Normally, this guy, if anything, is the super tryhard in every regular season game, and that's why actually he underwhelms people so much at Worlds because people get so used to his level being like at worst an 8 out of 10 that it's insane to ever imagine he could ever go below that. But the joke is this split actually he's been fairly chill compared to normal. And I get also, this is a point I made myself last year, the reason I don't make any excuses anymore if Chovy doesn't win Worlds is I do think history will not look kindly on this particular GenG roster if you don't win Worlds with it. Like people will just look and go, first of all, some of those players have won Worlds and they're some of the best players in their roles except for Chovy. But I do think what this does remind people of is this. You can't go too far the other way and make it like Chovy's not actually potentially the best player and he's just in a good team. Like he can also, while in like an all-star team like this, just 1v9 the whole fucking game. Like he can still do it, boys. Like this is the guy who used to have to hard carry with all the bad players is still in there somewhere. Like this series was bonkers.
Yeah, I mean, if you look back at the last few spring/winter splits, I mean, probably even last year was probably a step down from the year before that because his 24 spring was one of
some people say probably the best split ever played. Could be, right?
It's on the short list minimum. It's really hard to put. I mean, once we get further away from it, I think people are going to find it harder to put into context just how far ahead of the rest of the field Chovy was. Where we had and then it stretched obviously all the way up until MSI. Where you look at that MSI finals where it's Chovy versus Knight, and we finally have this great matchup, best of 5 on a final stage, fantastic. Knight was clearly, I think, the second best mid laner in the world, and he was just such a distant second. Such a distant second. He wasn't even within touching distance, really. And that was with BLG beating T1 like twice in best of 5s to that event. So it's quite clear BLG was second. A lot of it was kind of mid lane centric around that point too. And Chovy just one-man army. Just you couldn't do anything about him, which is why when we went into 25 winter, Chovy was still excellent, but it was just hard to compare it against how do you compare against that year before? And I feel like this is maybe a slight step down again, where I probably would have said he wasn't the best LCK mid at the start of this season when we were kind of coming through the first few weeks. I think, okay, he's a little bit off the boil. Individual matchups aren't looking great compared to what we expect from him. Maybe we put him, he'd still be top 3, but Showmaker had a very good start. Faker was an excellent form as well. VicLa looked really good. And obviously BDD's hanging around the place, but he's had a bit of a weird split himself too. But yeah, then he just turns it on for a playoff series like this and you think, well, that's what you expect out of him. You lose that perspective somewhat of what those heights he can reach, especially domestically.
I remember last year, I was very happy to see like a loose Chovy, you know, that was like willing to make mistakes. I really thought that year would be different because the roster was so damn strong. Because past years people were talking about super rosters and so forth, but the evolution of Chovy, it would have been so satisfying if it like went all the way, because gradually every year he has found ways to get better, and there was a looseness that he added to his play that maybe came due to Fearless that was like a very, very needed evolution, because he was never willing to exude his power over someone. Like I feel like he was very, very consistent and would get like gradual leads eventually, boom, boom, boom. But what he started doing last year was like he would push on people and challenge people in a way that he never did before. So it's like one of those moments where I'm like, I'm happy to see him, you know, make mistakes. I think it's like healthy almost that he has that relationship to the game where he understands when he needs to turn it on, and he understands what he needs to do in order to get to that level. Because I think getting used to having you know, access to your practice and access to like the system that you do and all the preparation that you do to always perform, I think that when you remove yourself from that, that is the biggest challenge of the World Championship in the end, because you're no longer in your office, you don't have the same scrim hours, you don't have the same amount of hours in, and you need to just kind of take it out of, you know, out of your pocket, because that's what the Faker is the best at. He has, his pockets are large, and I think it's cool that Chovy is capable of showing that too. But I'm getting ahead of myself, you know. We're still winter.
Yeah. By the way, I'm also with you. I even think similarly that also would have been a satisfying reason if he could have won Worlds last year, because also then he became the shot caller too, which by the way is part of the Faker narrative. If anything, he won the last few Worlds just off shot calling and making big clutch, but it wasn't even just being just the best mid laner. So I even think that would be an interesting angle if you want to contrast the two players, because before that, actually, a lot of people did have a very harsh profile for Chovy the first few years of like, he's just the lane god and he's just the guy who plays sort of like solo queue style League of Legends, and then everyone else has to, you know, magically make it happen around him. If anything, he's way more connected. And I know what you mean. He definitely took way more chances in big playoff games last year. By the way, one thing I'll tie into this though is, look, I'm with you. I don't think BFX is actually beating GenG. In fact, if anything, this is probably where GenG just spank them completely and we all come back down to it. But here's what is cool. Because now, at a minimum, BFX can only finish third at worst, it means there will now be a low bracket game, probably them against T1, where if you were a BFX player, here's all you need to tell them if you're the coach, mate. Bro, if we win 3 of these games, we go to first stand. Think how insane that is. Like, that wasn't even on the table at the beginning of the split. Like, you would have thought, like, remember, Hanwha Life was supposed to be in the fucking mix too. If you would have asked people to be cynical at the beginning of the split, it would go like this. It would go GenG, T1, Hanwha Life, but some people might even have had Hanwha Life above T1. Then you'd go to, it depends how much people believe in KT, DPLUS. Like, mate, you're not even getting anywhere close. So the idea you're even going to get a match that if you win this one match, might even be against the same team you've already beaten, you could actually go to first. That's going to be hype. Like, by the way, that'll be a very viewed series. And if I'm people like VicLa, mate, just fucking send it. Just go for this one.
Yeah,
you just swing for the fences.
Just imagine being on Fearx and like about 4 or 5 months ago, you were playing in the fucking ASI, which was a tournament held completely online and was predicted by an actual grasshopper. Like this, imagine going from that to now, where BFX like, wow, we won an international event. Asterisk predicted by a grasshopper. But
look,
like,
I know
grasshopper
cutting measures are getting really extreme in League of Legends, but can we at least have actual like mammals and humanoids and shit? You know, like fuck.
Honestly, that stuff is so.
Actual like, insects doing it. What
was the football World Cup where they had it predicted by the octopus?
They had one with an octopus, yeah. It was at the Euros or World Cup, I know, yes.
It was the one which Spain won back in like 2008, I want to say. But yeah, sadly the grasshoppers died now, by the way, so his spirit now resides.
Yeah, they only live about months, don't they? By the way, how sick is this grasshopper? You already predicted a whole tournament, right? You only lived about a month. Like what?
Yeah, it's like that's its entire life.
Kids, I know, like.
Its entire life amounted to BNK Fearx lifting that damn track, but they didn't even get to lift it because they were just in no fucking like practice room back in Korea. But imagine just being in that situation just before off season, you're not really sure what's happening, and you think, oh well, we'll keep the roster together, and then we move to this point. I actually wonder if that pressure gets to you though, because I don't think Fearx have ever had expectations on them.
No,
I don't think they've ever had that. Now, this is where I'm really interested to see how that affects players like Diable, of course, a player who you think is probably going to have an excellent career. But then I also wonder how it affects someone like VicLa, who's had a lengthy career now at this point, but He's had a lot of downswings, like
True.
a lot of downswings. Does the pressure actually
True.
get to him because he sees this chance of actually redemption? That would be redemption for him. And
Sure,
what if he screws up? I mean, you're against fucking Faker potentially for a spot in an international tournament. That is, it doesn't get more pride pressure than that, especially because, you know, for T1, whenever there's international qualification, internationals on the line, they do step up to the plate. They play a very good game. When they lost the game 5 last year to HLE, it wasn't just a snooze, oh, they just kind of slumped out. Of course, they turned out and they brought a very, very good series. There will never be a more difficult game for them where if it does go to a very pressure...
bro, you can even imagine the fucking the truck guy will just be waiting by the phone at Monday at 9 a.m. When he like, ding ding, where do you want to send the truck to? Like, fuck, can you imagine if Fearx knocks them out of first stand, bro? That's going to be the end of the world. No way, that'll be the end of the world, mate. It's over. The only way it could be funnier, sadly this isn't going to happen because I'm in reality, is if now BFX beats GenG and then GenG kicks T1 out of first stand. That's the only way it could be funnier, but I think we're being unrealistic. I have to make them win a whole series more against actually the best team at the moment. So I'm not saying that'll happen. But like I say, just the fact that game alone will take place will be spicy. That's also the thing with this bracket format. Yeah, it's going to be spicy as fuck, mate. Has to surely be T1 that play them, though. Like, does anyone actually believe DK is coming to fucking upset T1? Is it plausible?
Unless it's a huge collapse. No.
DPLUS is ass, bro. Like they are interesting, but they need time. Like they need time.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Winter is. You know, BFX. The fact that they stuck together, I think, is an advantage because a lot of the other teams made changes, and I do think that all the teams around them are gonna power up big time as things progress. Like you mentioned, How Alive, like T1's gonna get better, How Alive's gonna get better, DPLUS will get better, and the question is if BFX.
The joke is KT won't, but we'll put that to one side. So
that's cool. I'm tired of KT, bro.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I remember the last episodes we did. You know, last year was like, oh, KT's in a position. They have cousin BDD. Maybe they can go hard in the paint for this off season. Nah.
Oh, mate, imagine being the guy who at the end of Worlds was like, you know what? I believe in this perfect gentleman. Let's just give it. Oh, shit. Oh, that's a shame. And then even the Peter guy left and was actually smurfing on the bro. What's going on here? What even is this? BDD's suffering just has to be more. It's like, I'm wondering what will break first, BDD. You and mid lane or your spirit? Like, fucking hell, like your soul at this point in time, mate. Oh, yeah, by the way, here's the thing I hate about DPLUS as well. They give me like at this point, Showmaker is just on the same fucking ride that Rookie is of like, right, give them one false game of hope to believe it can work. No, really smurf on this game. Look, throwback, look like your old self, and now go back to shit again. Like, you know, it's the next series that you can't get a break. Because Showmaker also does this at the beginning of every year. He just like a few weeks where you're like, oh, he's still there. And then like by the time the playoffs comes, who gives a shit?
Yeah, if it's wins a split, he's the GOAT. I will say the one point in their favor, if it does come down to a DPLUS versus T1 matchup, like Showmaker's bogey matchup is Chovy. Turns out most people's bogey matchup is Chovy, but just Showmaker just cannot work against Chovy. He just gets locked in lane too much. He can't spread his impact around the map, which is where Showmaker actually comes to play. And as Nymaera was saying, it's not really like Faker is the oppressive laner. And we've seen 5-game series even just last summer, right, between DPLUS and T1, where Showmaker tries for the heavy playmaking. We're getting onto a playoffs patch where, you know, I think this is now phase where it's been nerfed, right? Where, you know, Major's going to be slightly less powerful. Perhaps playmakers are slightly more powerful. So there is a chance that maybe Showmaker pulls out some just utter magic. Just Winter, Showmaker does some crazy stuff. She's also been pretty good too. Problem is he's actually probably against the best player on T1 right now in Thorin. So if it comes down to a direct matchup, it's still an uphill battle, but you're just praying to God if you're a DPLUS fan that somehow Showmaker can just impact the map and Faker doesn't lock him in lane, because that's not been his specialty.
Well, to supplement all the great points you just made, I'd actually like to shout out our sponsor AG1, because if you want correct supplementation, really concisely put together, neatly all packaged, etc., they've got it sorted for you. Because obviously, if you look at me, I don't like vegetables. Some would say I'm actually in a one-man war against the vegetable world. I mean, I even hate insects that feed on vegetables. I like to only at the end, once it's gone through a multiple series of mammals, then I eat the cow, and then I get all the nutrition that way. You might also shocked it, because he still thinks, like, you know, fucking birds of the bees. Like, oh, what happened to what old Yeller? I just had to go to the retirement home, you know, anyway. Just close your ears, Willie. Like, oh yeah, that was the car backfiring as they took him off to that farm that he's definitely going to. So the point is, obviously, you have to face some harsh realities. You actually do need certain minerals, vitamins, etc. inside your body. Well, you know what? AG1's got it all sorted for you. They've made it really easy. Just take it all in one scoop, basically. You get your multivitamin, your pre and probiotics, your superfoods, antioxidants, all in one scoop. It's easy, so each day you just get up, have your scoop of it. Also, even though it's like athletic greens, don't be scared by the green part like I was, politically and both in terms of food. You can also just actually enjoy it because they put all nice flavors in there like citrus and berry. I like them all. They all taste pretty good, actually. They don't taste anything like a vegetable, so they've nailed it. That's exactly what I wanted it to be like. I don't want to taste a vegetable in this regard. So it's actually also really easy because then you get your energy support and all the rest of it. They've got the superfoods, the B vitamins, all that stuff. Get through all the slumps of winters and colds and all that jazz. Get your immune support from antioxidants. So, of course, you also want to save, don't you? So AG1 has over 50,000 verified 5-star reviews and comes with a 90-day money-back guarantee. For a limited time only, go to drinkag1.com/summoning to get a free AG1 flavor sampler and AGZ sampler to try all the flavors. And AGZ is like the sleep supplement they have. Plus free vitamin D3 plus K2, which comes like a little dropper. So you just put one drop on your tongue, basically. And AG1 welcome kit with your first AG1 subscription order. This is a limited time offer, only available while supplies last. That's drinkag1.com/summoning. Drinkag1.com/summoning. Right, okay. Now we will go on. I think now, actually, boys, we do a little pivot. Let's do the conversation already. But what we'll do is we'll ease into it. Since we've done the big story, which is obviously Fearx has beaten T1, the world's on fire, will it continue? How does VicLa keep getting away with this? All that jazz. Now let's come out of that second into the refreshing world of some heavy drama, and then we'll go into the LEC. So we'll go into Europe by way of NLC. Fuck, I've done it again. Bloody the Yamato sneak path, of course. Anyway, whatever. So anyway, it turns out the NLC wasn't just carried by Cadro Los Ratones. Apparently, it's just held together by a bunch of string leaves, and they have a budget of 4.5 buttons, and they already owe 50,000 buttons to everyone who was involved for the last 3 years. So the main drama here, if people haven't seen, is this isn't one of those ones where it's like the Four Horsemen say, hey, there's problems in NLC. This isn't like one person's like, hey, I haven't been paid on time. This is like, at this point, it'd be quicker if I just summarized who has been paid, who wants to be on the broadcast, and if there ever will be a future NLC broadcast. Because as far as I can tell you, you obviously have somewhat of an inside edge on this one, Nymaera, but the entire thing sounds like it's on fire, man. It sounds really bad.
It is on fire. All of it's on fire. It's been on fire for years. It's just now at the point you can't hide the smoke anymore. Right. It's just gotten more, and everyone's choking out. In fact, I'm pretty sure only one person's been paid, and that's Nymaera, and he's the one guy who's like been trying to broadcast the message for everyone else.
He's also going 10 times harder because he's already been paid as well. Like, can he get a break? Can he?
And I mean, I respect the casters who are involved, because effectively they've said, look, we've said our piece, but now we have to basically shut up until we're paid, pretty much. Because I understand that, you know, raise the issue and then just wait to see what the response is. So for those who aren't aware of the drama, it started with Aragon making a tweet in which he said NLC don't pay their casters, and he talks about how basically over the last few years even he's been very, very much delayed with his payments. And when he was asking about, well, okay, so if those you don't know, particularly within Europe as well, if you put in an invoice and it goes beyond the elapsed date, you can re-invoice with an extra percentage on top of it. Now, this isn't done very often within esports because, frankly, it pisses the fuck out of tournament organizers.
Yeah,
they have to. Now, legally, they do have to pay it, but they don't want to because then, well, rather, they don't.
I'll explain it very simply. The real dirty secret of the esports industry when it comes to broadcast work is the reason why you're expected to almost be like a mate and not an employee and just give them extra time and not charge them like you're saying, Nymaera, is because the implication is like, okay, yeah, technically legally I'd have to pay you, but you're being a bit troublesome and difficult, so maybe I don't hire you if it's between you and the next guy. And that thinking, unfortunately, means 99% of people will never add a late fee. Even though, as you'll say, it's totally valid. It's absolutely valid.
And obviously, there are other issues with this too, right? Where if things did get very large, which it has done in this case, lawyers are expensive and casters don't have a union. You're not exactly going to get legal representation very easily either. And by the way, folks, this happens everywhere in Tier 2. Hell, I mean, late payments happen everywhere in esports. I mean, I've heard of big tournament organizers not paying for like Well, I've not been.
I mean, I'll just tell you, in Counter-Strike, ESL is notorious for being like many months late. But again, because they're the biggest hirer, people just don't say anything publicly. It's just a known thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone without getting paid for like 5 months overdue, I think, at points. I think in tier 2, that's been similar as well, and I've heard of people being paid even later than that. So that's a crazy amount. And typically, every month that goes past, you can re-invoice for, I think it's 8% plus whatever the going rate is by the country that you're invoicing in bank account. So it ends up being around about 10%. I think in Denmark, which is relevant to this one, it's about 9.75%. So every 30 days, you take the amount which you already invoiced for, you add on the extra percent, and then every month it'll do that. But basically, yeah, if you do that, you're costing more money, and you're unlikely to get hired by that person again. So a lot of people didn't get paid, is effectively the answer here, alongside other issues with NLC this year, as viewership has fallen through the floor, production quality has been
and people were just fired like out of nowhere, like Trouble supposedly was just told basically, you just fired basically. Yes. See ya, you're out.
And that is the other thing. Hiprain and Troubling are the two casters that they had. They didn't have any other casters. They had people on analyst desks, but these are only other casters. Were told, after working almost a decade on the region, you're gone. And they were told that through Discord. What? I mean, tier 2 doesn't have many casters which stick around for a very long time because, bluntly, the money's not there. And if you don't want it to be your stopping point, you want to go upwards from that. But these two have stuck around for a very long time. I've worked with them on NLC, and they were told by Discord message, very unceremoniously, you're gone. And the reason they can do that is because I would imagine they weren't given a contract with minimum days. So they actually gave them a shitty contract in the first place, but what option do you have? So I reckon they didn't have any minimum days. So they're not obligated to bring them on to show, even though technically they might still be under contract for the rest of this year. They're not guaranteed to give them any extra work. So all of this stuff came out within a day of each other. It's absolutely exploded. And the cherry on top is NLC replied today. After like a day of just radio silence, they made a tweet today going to an article which is very likely AI written. It's like 84% likely on that, where they admitted to saying, yes, we ran out of funding effectively, and we managed to secure some funding to cover the original invoices, but we did decline some late payments. Basically, because I would imagine they spent what they didn't have. They got some money back in to try and cover the original invoices, but they don't have enough now for late payments. And they're saying, we're just declining the late payments. Motherfucker, you can't do that. That's illegal. You have to pay late payments as part of your contract, and as part of EU law, and as part of Danish law as well. So that's all the things which we've caught up with now. A bunch of people haven't been paid, including people who had to fly out to various finals. There were some influencers they hired for some previous events last year. Some of them were paid, some of them weren't, and they tried to pressure some of them into doing extra work while they were there, which they weren't contracted for. And of course, the casters have been mistreated as well. Everything's in fire. Discuss.
But it's one thing I'll just throw out there. When I'm reading this article on leagues.gg, one of the things that I find really weird is they brag about how they made significant investments in arena events, right? First of all, that wording is really weird because that's not an investment. What you did is you just paid to use an arena. Like, if I hire like a fucking strip club for my birthday, I'm not making an investment into Thorin strip club. I've just hired it for that week. If I don't make any money off it, I didn't make any money. So what's weird is that wording, by the way, is almost to imply like, oh, the money's gone, but don't worry, we invested it in those events. I've told people this on the past. No, as I told people in the past episodes about the homestands that are going to come for LEC, there's a reason there's only a couple of teams even want to do those homestands. They cost money. If you go watch the 4 Horsemen episode where Arnold from GenG basically says to run a homestand in Korea is going to cost $1 million an event for one day. So the fees are not, what that implies to me is, sorry, we spent loads of the money on all those cool arena events to have like Los Rotores and all the teams win the event and play up to the big viewership, etc. But the downside of that is if I'm talent, mate, that doesn't do anything for me. Fuck, do I care that you spent the money on that? Like, how about balance your budget? Since I actually had to work, like you're saying, not only did I work in this case, Nymaera, but I might have had to go months and months and months with rent due, where I'm telling the guy, like, next month, please, it'll come. So, like, who should ever have to be in that position? That'll fuck your whole life up, mate. So, I think this article is weak sauce, mate. It's written as though it's like a professional statement. It doesn't address anything. It's just a bunch of bollocks, like saying, like, and we did not achieve securing a financial commercial. In other words, you just didn't make any money. Yeah, okay, that's bad. You can't ever spin that as like, you know, just give us 5 minutes, especially because, by the way, when you then do cynically fire Troubling and Hiprain, it makes it look like you know the money's never come in. So you best better cut all the losses now. You better get everyone who's legally out of the way that you can right now, because you know there never is this payment coming that's going to save everyone.
And then other things which kind of add a stick in the craw as well is the influences that they brought in for the final. So they had like an arena event. It was called Leagues Disrupt in Stockholm, where they brought in a K-pop artist to come play during like midway through the series. They tried to make it into a concert thing, and they paid the influencers before they paid the casters, the people who were working there to as well. Apparently, they paid to like fly one of the influencers.
What even is esports? Wait a minute, I'm just sat there like a sweaty nerd in a fucking shitty Berlin apartment, grinding, just hard grinding, watching NLC. By the way, that's like some Clockwork Orange shit. I'm willingly watching NLC. I'm watching fucking Don Jake, like, lol, I'm playing now. I have to watch this as though it's a real game of like fucking Vitality versus G2. I'm doing all this, right? And then I'm sweating, grinding, watching the most boring game. I'm watching Vietnamese League of Legends. Oh, they picked in Italy here. Fuck what happened in this matchup. And then after that, I'm like, can I get paid? And they're like, nah, sorry, we paid it to that girl. Like, 1, 2, keep us up, go book. Like that, and she got paid. What the fuck even is esports? What is this? She was there for 5 minutes. I was grinding the whole year. Does she even know what Italy does? She doesn't know shit about Italy. Give me that fucking money. I'd be going mad over that, loving it.
At the end of the day, they should also get paid too. The secret at the end of the day, folks, everyone should get fucking paid if you said you were going to pay them.
Yeah,
you have to pay these fuckers. You have to pay all of them. And then, you know, Jamada did a stream
just
earlier.
They don't even know the esports industry. If there's anyone that you can actually easily exploit who won't come out publicly, it's Korean fucking K-pop singers, you idiot. Their entire industry is built on that. But whatever. That's about the point. Put that to the side.
And I'm there's so much stuff. There's other stuff. Of course.
See, your man's just been off in that fucking. He's been off in his hammock on fucking Power Spike where they all drink pina coladas and goes, yes, well, actually, I thought the T1 should have won the game. You've missed this energy. That's the thing, you might. Or you haven't been around me for a while, you know.
Tag me in.
Because you also wrote, you were speaking on stream about this, weren't you?
Yeah, because like my interaction with like the Matthias guy, right? It's like a big red flag for me it's like I was at all of the, like, except the one in the UK, I was at the NLC events and I interacted with the people that worked. They were super good people on the ground, you know, like Tiv, the guy, like the referee. We had like really good player managers and so forth. We had like people that worked super, super hard. Imagine now that the casters got screwed and they have a fucking voice, you know, to fucking go on Twitter. Like, imagine if the talent isn't getting paid. There's a lot of people that are not fucking getting paid. I think this is just the beginning of the shit show. I think the outcome, I would be very surprised if Matthias doesn't get fucked completely. I would be very, very surprised. Like, I think over time, worse shit is going to reveal itself. I think the statement they made was complete like garbage because in the end, I think it's always like if the talent is getting paid, then the player manager that they can just ignore, and this person, the next person. Like, I think there's a lot of people involved to run these events and the entire fucking show. And I think there's a lot of people out there that didn't get paid. I think that the NLC is like what NLC has done last year is like a microcosm of every problem in esports.
Agreed.
It's like in terms of like having something that happens to you that is good. It's like all Los Atones. It's like rather than taking, you know, the benefit of that, getting some sponsorships and getting that money, it's like, oh, we can run the league now and pay people for 10 years and we can see what kind of opportunity that brings. It's like, no, let's just spend millions on extravagance and just down the drain. And there's no way that they made a profit on that. There's no way that there's a world where that is a benefit. And I wonder where that money came from. There's no way LEC had like some big coffers, you know, of cash waiting around to splurge on these big ass arenas in very expensive countries and venues. So
it's implied to make themselves a cost something, mate. There's no money. No one has any money.
Investment, bro. It was an investment.
By the way, it's also gross.
I think this is the beginning, man.
I think the section actually about the talent changes is fucking gross the way it's phrased. Because basically, they don't even just... Here's what I would do. Look, I realise I would have a more transparent approach. I would obviously get my lawyers to check that I'm not going to implicate myself by saying this, but I would say something along the lines of like, and by the way, we just openly apologise to Hyprian and Troublelink. We're really sorry because we hoped they would be with us for the whole year. But in this case, you know, you can say like financial concerns meant that we couldn't continue to work. No, instead what they do for real, and I think this is actually fucking gross because it does actually remind me, by the way, of when Riot did this when they actually limited like Monty and Dora as the casters. You just pretend you actually chose this as though you wanted to go a different, because they say that we're going a different direction. What is that? Just people who don't get paid? What are we? Because when you write that, by the way, your actual implication, since you put our decision to make changes was driven by a desire to take the product in a new direction. And listen to this sentence. These kinds of decisions are a natural part of broadcasting and tournament operations, even when they are difficult. That directly implies, by the way, they think whoever they're hiring instead of Troubling and Hypocrite are better, and that this is just a normal thing you do to like almost upgrade. Whereas, as far as we can tell, you have just downgraded because you don't have the money to pay anyone. You just don't have the money to pay these two. Because the reason that is gross is, it's one thing if people disagree with me and think Troubling shouldn't be on LEC. She's overqualified for fucking NLC. What are we even talking about right now? That's outrageous. The idea that like we're going a different direction. Fuck you. No, you're not. You're just doing it. This is, by the way, logically, this is who you wanted to be the talent. You now can't pay them. You've had to fire them. You don't then get to pretend you're the guy with the smart idea who went a different route. Like that's just why I think that's really unprofessional. I think that the way that's phrased. I hate that.
It is, because these two, Hipper and Trouble, I've worked with them before. Yeah, I mean they're very qualified, and yeah, regardless on your like personal opinion of them in chat or whatever, and I understand the casting is a very subjective thing, they are massively over qualified for tier 2. You look at the people which they have, and one of the things which Hipper tweeted out about, which is quite concerning as well, is that effectively a lot of the people that were hired for other parts of the broadcast were friends of the producer as well. Now, in terms of the people that they have. In terms of the people that they have on desk, there are several people that they have on desk which have never done League content before. And in fact, some of them have like 2 followers on Twitter, which immediately brings up red flags. Now, I'm not saying that they can't be good. However, now watching through the first few weeks of NLC, it doesn't look like they were particularly prepared for this split and some of the production that was coming into it. There's a lot of production things in general. But when one of your talent is then saying, look, these are like, there are like nepotism hires in there, that's a problem. I think Emprez, who's on there, actually does deserve a spot. She's played in the women's scene for a while. I think she was on SKF Rosa, and I feel really bad for her because she's just caught up in this shitstorm and it's absolutely not her fault. But there's like, yeah, if you're going to take someone else from your talent team, also, whoever the hell you're going to put into that slot now as the next caster is going to have just a million negative points to fight against them. So I feel bad from that point, because at the end of the day, the people who are benefiting from this are probably not going to benefit from it at all now. And, I suppose part of me is like, give them a benefit that out for them on a personal level, but then just on the organizational level, I'm just like, you have made an incorrect choice, because if you're still going to go back, because I believe something which they said in there is that we're still going to try a traditional broadcast approach for the next couple of weeks, then just fucking bring back Trouble and Hipper if they want to be there, because they're going to be your best option for that anyway. There's so many different issues with this. You've done it mid-split as well, because now these guys have made plans for their life effectively in this year, and while technically, contractually, you don't have to give them more work or whatever. At least to like midway through the year, in terms of between splits, or best, you should really do that during off season. If you hadn't made this decision by off season, well, you've kind of just fucked over everything now. And the problem is then you're changing the direction of your product mid-split where everyone can see it, and it just looks very unprofessional. Not that the rest of the products look very professional either. And there was one of the more important things, I think, which was said was by Joe. Joe is like a legendary producer within all scenes within League of Legends. This guy did the T1 Invitational. I've worked with him before on some amateur stuff. He's worked on NLC. Joseph Harding, also known as Joe FX, who is just incredibly good. And what he was saying is that, he was asked back to be on the NLC, and then they ghosted him. So even stuff outside of the whole casting thing, in terms of the whole pay thing, where Joe was like, I'm going to do this for minimum pay, I'm doing this because I want to give you a good product. They even ghosted him. And from what I'm hearing, the guy which they've got in to do producing has 0 experience with doing League of Legends production, and this guy's doing it as remote. He's getting paid quite a lot to do that as well, so this guy's getting paid, obviously, and they still have huge production issues too. So there's just so many red flags. There's just so many red flags. I don't understand why you would do this if you wanted a good product, which makes me to believe maybe they're just going down as a company, and maybe we'll just see the end of them at the end of the year, and they're trying to just bail out on the way down. But that just feels awful for everyone involved.
I honestly think that at this point, I think that it can get escalated to the point where like it will turn into like a massive legal issue. And I think they're trying to cover their tracks. Like to make less of a public fuss about it. They're going to start from like the talent or whatever and try to cover that. But I think the poison runs so deep here, and I think this is just the beginning. That's my impression. Like, I think this is the beginning. I think some of the people on the ground, like a lot of the people involved, I think there's a lot of people not getting paid. I just wanted to add one final thing, which I thought was funny, like in the context of the talent, because there was like a line where they say, "We're changing the format coming in the next split. We're gonna move into a more traditional broadcast," and then like you removed all your talent. Like, what are we talking about? Like, what are we saying here? It's just crazy. Like, I wonder what the next move will be. But I hope everything will be aired in public, and then you have names attached to it, and especially I think the nice part, not the nice, it's not nice, but like the good part is that there's no escaping. I think considering which countries they are based in. So you know, I'm hopeful for the legal systems.
And they lied about Lost Ratones being in the league for this year to try and get influencers to make their own teams as well. Right. That's actually another thing.
They came to me, bro. They came to me and like, yo, Los Ratones is in the league. You want to make a team? I'm like, bro, they're not in the league.
That's so funny in context, man.
I'm like, bro, you're lying. And then like, and Kato told me that he informed them like months before, you know? So I was like, bro, it can't be, you can't be that delusional. So it just has to be the deception at that point, right? Like it just has to be. There's no way you've been informed by something and then it doesn't happen. It just has to be a lie, you know? Like it's crazy. It's really, really nuts.
Right, what we'll do is we'll keep doing a little bit of like hot cold. We'll go in the hot shower, then the cold shower. We'll keep doing some contrast here. So what we're going to do is we'll actually talk a little bit about some games and then come back out into another drama bomb. So our friends over at Polymarket, if you see upcoming this weekend, there is the Fnatic versus Team Vitality game, which is going to be on the 21st at 6:30 p.m. Central European time. And obviously, this is an interesting matchup now because, in theory, these are two teams where I understand people are disappointed with Fnatic, but actually both teams have been very up and down over that. And at the moment, it's quite an even game according to the traders on Polymarket because Vitality has 55% chance to win this match according to the traders, and Fnatic is at 45%. And I want to know, what do you guys think? How do you evaluate this matchup? What do you think those are the right numbers? Which would you pick of the two, etc.?
Honestly, from my side, I was surprised. You know, even the bookies fucking dropped the Fnatic is favored against Na'Vi. Like that was crazy, bro. There's some catching up, and it seems like the world is finally catching up. You know, I think Vitality should be favored based on what Fnatic showed in terms of gameplay. I think also a lot of their wins in the best of ones were also like wins that weren't honest and happened due to the flaws of other teams. Fnatic has been without identity the entire split and didn't grow or didn't progress at all. Like a lot of their victories happened early and then they went on a big lose streak, and like they beat, for example, Na'Vi, where Na'Vi threw a 10k gold lead. You know, that's the type of shit that just happens one and is a price you pay for having BO1s pretty much. So on my side, I think Vitality should be favored. I think they're their own worst enemy, and I think where the number is at, you know, where the market is at, I think it makes sense for sure.
Vitality didn't flatter themselves, but I think a very fun question is, do you think Fnatic are the worst team in playoffs? Because I think they're in with a shot of it. It's either them or like Heretics didn't look great, right? It's one of the two. I think Fnatic, just pip it for me, I think Fnatic might be the worst team in playoffs. I think that they have actively regressed over this split. They don't look like a team that trust each other. They don't look like a team which understands what's going to win them a game or a team fight. You know, Razork in particular is often a really big litmus test for that. You know, if the team trusts him, his engages look inspired and it looks really good when he's kind of going in with the support of his team. That's just not happening now, where it seems like he doesn't trust his team and his team doesn't trust him, which is just, it's a killer for a team like Fnatic. Vladio doesn't understand the matchups that he's playing, which is horrible to see because this guy, this guy's fall from grace has just continued at this point. So Fnatic look ass. That one we can pretty much agree on. The question is, can Vitality fumble the ball hard enough to make this an interesting series? They did kind of versus MKOI, but they got ahead of them in that game one. And then everything after that Chrono Break, you think, well, was it a mental diff? Was the Chrono Break fair? Questions like that, and how much does that affect them? Even though I don't think Vitality deliver on promises well, even though I think Vitality absolutely are their own worst enemy, and Marto is completely right on that, I still don't think they can fumble hard enough against Fnatic. I think Narco is going to eviscerate Emperos. I don't even think Emperos is like bad. I just think Narco is like the second most lane focused player within top lane in the LEC. It's him and then Kana, right? I think that I think that Humanoid and Kazi, despite them having their down moments, I think they are still, and well, okay, maybe Upset's maybe slightly better than Kazi. We'll see. I don't know. I mean, Upset doesn't have much of a platform to play against. I just think pound for pound, Vitality are just going to stomp through Fnatic. It would take an utter collapse. So even though the numbers are like, slim, moderate advantage towards Vitality, I'm going to say it's heavy advantage for Vitality for me.
The reason why I would speculate the numbers have been more favourable for Fnatic than people rate is just because of the BO1s. If you look in the BO1s in the first 2 weeks, they beat both Na'Vi and they beat Vitality. The problem with that is, one, that was actually one of the rare games that Na'Vi lost that wasn't good. And then secondly, Vitality got really good at the end of the split. So that actually, unfortunately, if you shadow box that and put it in the context of what actually was happening, it's not actually as crazy. It just made people think, this is actually the flop. By the way, this is why I hate BO1s, because you see one game and that just defines the whole team and everything they would do against that squad. You get a full BO3, you get a way better sense, as everyone who watches the LPL and LCK knows, of really what are the ebbs and flows of the game and what would you have done differently if you'd lost game one, etc. Then the other reason, here's why I personally would absolutely go with Vitality here. I actually think you're getting very generous odds on Vitality in this particular case at 55%. Remember, the way that Polymarket works is it's a peer-to-peer thing. You just trade against other people who are trading on these markets. You're not against like the house or whatever. And in this particular case, if it happens that Vitality wins, that gets converted to $1 basically when you bought in for 55 cents. You're going to get like pretty good odds on, well, I think I agree with you guys. It's looked like a much better team in terms of floor. And then here's the other reason why I just would never pick Fnatic personally. Bro, they have done that thing that I actually hate, which is they're not being like polite or coy with their PR. Bro, nobody in Fnatic believes in the fucking team. They have no actual morale as far as I can tell. Like, the joke is, there were a lot of teams at the end of the BO1s that were just doing bullshit of like, oh, shame, lost Ratonis. It was like free PR. I think Fnatic actually do believe that they were probably a slightly worse team and probably are the worst team in the playoffs. I think they knew going in that we're not going to do anything in these playoffs. Like, we're probably getting bounced immediately out. I mean, if anything, actually, logically, by the two teams you played now, those are two of the few teams you beat. Like, if you're not favoured to win these series, who should you beat? So I'm sorry, I look at their squad. It is easily, I think, the most dysfunctional team of like what in theory are good players in the LEC. Most of the teams below them have reasons to be their worst players or worst budgets. You look at the players, they're not even a bad set of players, but they don't really work very well together. Like, the only one factor I think even gives them a chance is the Razork and Upset factor. Like, if those two players get a game or two off where they're really insane, you have a chance. But even then, like, Vitality actually, one thing, even though it's an overrated angle, is they actually have, by bringing Humanoid and Kazi together, created some sort of vibes team. They used to be a pretty auraless team themselves the last few years. Actually, this team genuinely looks like they do enjoy playing the game together and they have like a sense how they want to play the matchups, etc. So I think I'm easily taking Vitality for this one, boys. I'm with the traders, if not more so. Like, I think that's a steal. Okay. I did promise, though, there's more drama coming. So obviously, right, I don't ever need to do a disclaimer on this show. Like, we obviously have our own bias and disclaimer. Like, we're going to do the drama about the Los Ratones fans sending horrible messages to Czech Snort's Carmine Court players and stuff. Oh no! Wait, seriously, you mean that's a real thing? The complaint. Oh, my bad then. Let's seriously address this. So, right, obviously, Yamato was the coach of Los Ratones and will have his own bias in that sense. But spoiler, I've always said on all these shows, I don't even believe in the idea of being neutral and unbiased. It's a fucking opinion talk show. The whole definition of it is to lean into your bias, just admit what it is, and then go ham with it, go whatever angle you want. So, I actually think on this topic, there's all sorts of angles we can go to. Essentially, let's just start with the premise, and you can go. Whoever wants to jump in first can go in first. The initial premise goes, because Carmine Corp obviously had that game against Heretics where they were heavily favoured to win. I think there was something mad, by the way. Like, I think Heretics was like a 4-1 underdog or something insane like that. So obviously, Carmine Corp were heavily favoured to win, and they were seen as the best team in the league. But also, simultaneously, they were the ones via Kometo stream who were the most outspoken against Los Ratones being in the league. They've played all those weird social media games where they've done the silly videos and the memes and stuff. And the perception is Los Ratones and Kometo don't want, Carmine Corp and Kometo don't want Los Ratones in the playoffs. playoffs as some sort of a statement of they shouldn't have been in LEC anyway. So because it's made people think, one, because he laughed on his stream when they were losing their eggs, is this actually like a work and a match fix or something crazy? And then two, the idea of just like essentially just sentiment, like you didn't want us in anyway. The implication from Carmine Corp people is that a load of Los Ratones fans have DM'd and messaged everyone. And even though they're not saying explicitly what it is, if you read between the lines, they're trying to imply it's the usual crop of like, we kill you, rape your mum, fuck you, you know, all the horrible things you can say to someone on the internet. The implication is they've done that. And Carmine Corp aren't just complaining about it. Like this guy here used to be the CEO at one point in time. I believe this, like, what's his name? Arthur, is it? Is it Arthur Perez or something? Let me double check. Arthur Perticos. Yes, Arthur Perticos, who used to be like the CEO at one point in time. He's the strategic director now of Carmine Corp. He's implied, by the way, that like it's not just that this has happened, but like it's implied from Carmine Corp. Maybe they're even going to do something about this. Like maybe there's going to be an investigation from Riot, or I don't know, they're going to get people legally involved. What are people's initial thoughts? Let's just start with the premise. What are people's thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, how diplomatic do you want to be as someone involved in both these teams here?
No, like I could say, like I think obviously the idea that it was match fix is ridiculous, right? It's like I think that part is silly. I think it's pointless, silly. I think it's that whole day was just riddled with games that were with no stakes for teams, and it's BO1s and shit can happen, you know. Like in the end, like we lost against Vitality, we threw a lead, and it was completely in our hands. So that aspect of it we should remove from the equation right away. Casey, I think what's his name? Kalis got interviewed and he said they were experimenting in draft, bro. That
doesn't help. That doesn't help either, does it? I know.
There's not a single player that is going to think that was like valid to experiment with, because I think the idea of experimenting in draft doesn't make any sense. I think it's just a lot of bullshit most of the time, but I did think that the draft and like was just completely goofy, right? Like they're playing Varus, Nerf, Jace, Nico, LeBlanc against Jhin, Rumble, Nautilus. Like whatever target gets hit is going to die, and they didn't pick like Rumble. Like in every other structure that they drafted when Rumble was open, they slammed Rumble just like they did in playoffs. I guess they didn't do it in playoffs. They picked it 4-5 in playoffs, but it was strange. But in the end, it's like there was no stake for them. They secured first. They can do whatever the fuck they want with that game. It is what it is. I do think like on the fan side, it's like the landscape of what things are has just changed so much over the last 2-3 years. It's like it's just this is now you're in a situation where everything becomes an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, where it's like the vitriol that has come in the other way and the other direction has been so harsh, and then it's like there's always a balancing act, you know. There's always a balancing act, and I think in regards to what fans do or don't do, I think there is like the responsibility of how the landscape has changed in my mind happened with Casey getting involved and Koi getting involved, and obviously the translate button on Twitter that apparently mistranslates every French tweet ever. Like that's the number one go-to excuse. Like you're missing the nuance of the Twitter translating button. Is just not good enough.
Usually that's a lie, but true. It could occasionally do. I'm sure.
It's just that
they were like, when I said to fuck your whole mother's face, that was actually a mistranslation of she should be well fed and enjoy her life and have relationships with men that love her. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is the most ridiculous argument of all time. I know. Come on.
Wasn't it Execute or whatever who on Rogue who said like kill yourself to someone in Solo Queue? Was like, what I really meant was take care of yourself.
There you go. Exactly. Yeah. Listen, being in the game right now is not good for you. You need to get out of it and focus on your life and recreate a new life and be reborn. You know, like
you old version of yourself and grow into a better.
And then it's like you look at what they actually said. It's just like KYS. It's like, come on, bro. What are we doing here? What's this Johnny Cochran level defense lawyer like? No, where you going with this show? You about like fan bases doing this?
I just wanted to say it's like everything with size. You're going to have people that are very crazy, right? I think that happens with size always, and I do think that teams, the big fan bases in Europe that came in over the last couple of years, they did carry a bigger responsibility in making sure that was kind of toned down. But I didn't see a lot of action surrounding that, and everything like the way the consequence of this is the consequence of just the build-up over the last years. And maybe there was more to be done from Casey's side or Koi's side, or maybe whatever they did wouldn't have changed anything in terms of what the fan landscape is. I just think that that's just where we're at right now. And I'm not going to say that if Casey made more statements or banned more people or moderated more heavily that anything would change, because I do think that looking at what Twitter is, like Twitter nowadays is just, it's just a funnel.
It's PvP.
It's PvP. It's like that's a different world altogether.
Yeah,
it's like going on Twitter. It's a completely different world, and the angriest people and the most bitter people like get they just get they get into combat there. So it's like I feel like that's
I'll give you a joke
from everything else.
Right, back in the day, because this is literally how the platform used to work. If people don't know, it's not even that many years ago. There wasn't a For You page. That was some like Instagram, TikTok shit. Like, actually, Twitter used to only be your feed of who you followed, and that was it. So essentially, it even used to be linear. It was in order of how when they posted, and that's all you got to see, unless you went to your front page, which was sort of like a half algo of the people you follow, which was like just then doing the more important ones, So if people don't know, my joke is this. The reason Twitter, a lot of people used to really like it before, is because before this, Twitter was essentially people you follow or who follow you. So as a result, in a Venn diagram, are most likely people who actually are interested in what you have to say or have some value in it or like you. And therefore, it generally meant you didn't get as many sort of antisocial, rude people. My joke now would be, Twitter now is like some nightmare matchmaking. Like in your daughter, they have a thing where if you're a naughty boy, they do the Prisoner's Island thing where you get like a low status in the matchmaking and it'll put you with other dickheads basically until you sort of improve your behavior. Now that's what Twitter's like. Twitter is like searching for the 10,000 people who would really hate this comment. Okay, deliver it to them. And that's like brilliant. And then they all just reply to you and tell you what you need to take care of yourself and leave the game, like Execute's advice would be, and that your mother really needs a great meal, maybe one shaped like a fucking kind of monster, fucking hell, like give me, yeah, whatever. Listen, I did the Execute version of that. So no, it's wild. And I also do think that's one thing about this whole topic that I can't handle is, bro, we could have a great conversation. It's been had many times about Kami Corp fans, about what is this, I'll use all the political terms. What is the deal with the turned up temperature in esports? Why can no one ever step down? Why can no one ever just do in the midst of one of these a simple post sort of like, guys, remember, keep the banter fun, don't cross the line. Like, let's keep it so it's like a rivalry and we're shit talking, but let's never go too far with personal stuff. Like, I do think that's a real conversation we can have. The problem here obviously is this. It can't be abstract because Carmine Corp people are the ones complaining. And bro, you guys, there's a saying in the Bible, you reap what you sow. You created this environment. Literally, you pioneered this. This didn't exist before you. I used to complain back on Summoning Insight 10 years ago about Fnatic and TSM fans. You know what? All is forgiven. You guys can come back anytime. That was just like, they were just mad. You thought Reckless wasn't number one ADC, or, you thought Jensen was better than Bjergsen. That was just people going, you are an idiot, or dickhead. That seems quite tame compared to like things about killing you or outrageous things about your country or some sort of racial angle or some shit. So the thing that I find mad about this whole topic is, first of all, if you're KC, this is the fucking two Spider-Mans pointing at each other meme. Like, who the fuck are you to complain about this, you twat? And then secondly, the exact same argument Yamato just made. Look, as a general rule, yes, if you scale up a fan base's size, you will get more and more antisocial, hostile people. But the problem is, we're all public individuals. We all make comments about many different team organizations. And I'm sorry, there are fabulously popular teams in LCS and LEC that I might have said equally as harsh things about. I'll never get the response I will from Kami Corp fans or T1 fans or MKOI fans or whatever. The joke is, back in the day, TSM fans were 100 times worse than a Team Liquid fan or a Cloud9 fan, even though some of those teams might be teams I'm perceived as hating on. So one of the problems is, I do think, look, I don't totally blame the influencer, but I do think that they have played sort of with fire here and now they're getting a bit burned. I think that is the analogy I have to give them. And I also do want to just say, I could now be a prick, so I'm not going to do this because I'm going to be fair. I could just turn around to this Arthur Petticoats guy and just go, oh, Arthur, do you not like it? No, you have to understand, Arthur, this is a brand new fan section that's just coming to LEC, mate. We need more fans, don't we? Whenever there's fans and top viewership, mate, like Kami Corp, we have to welcome them in. And you know what, Arthur? That's just passion, mate. They're just very passionate about their team and they're young and they're getting a lot of like bubbling up emotions. And you know what? They're enriching our culture of the LEC with their passion and with their zeal for loss. You should celebrate that, Arthur. Oh, do you only like that when it's your fans from France specifically supporting Kami? God damn, rich is that, mate? That's the part I find a bit sort of like, it's a problem. You have to at least acknowledge it a bit if you're the Carving Cop guy. Look, I get that our fans do it sometimes. By the way, if you were smart, why not just make it so it's not even about Los Ratones? It's like, actually, I now agree, I get it, but there is a problem with fan culture. We need to figure out how to channel and harness the good parts. Yeah. And let's, in fact, yeah, by the way, the number one thing you could even do is let's have a meeting. Me and Cadrell and Kometo will sit down. Look, actually, you know what? It was all fun and games until people started saying things too bad. Let's lower the temperature. Let's figure out a way that we can be like friendly rivals like Manchester United and Liverpool, but we're not actually going to say we're going to kill each other. And you know what I mean? I feel like you have to acknowledge your part if you KC. Surely, come on.
Well, there's multiple angles to this again, right? Because obviously, is it right, some of the stuff which the Rats fans are saying? No, some of that shit is fucking horrid. You know, I've seen a bunch of tweets from it which have been
absolutely, yes.
Like end of the day, that's just not acceptable. And that obviously, but then you have to again kind of draw back.
By the way, it wasn't only KC people. As far as I know, people like Fnatic players for losing the G2 got some messages. I heard a lot of people got them. And by the way, one thing actually that you guys sort of touched on briefly earlier is another negative aspect of this type of behavior is it's almost the perception of the fan. It actually does literally remind me of in real life when football hooligans go outside the game after they lose and riot and have fights, because it's almost like the fans think they have to like have mob justice because the team lost. And so in this case, because it's so unfair, they think they're like doing a good thing by play. I don't even think this is just people being toxic. I think they think they're like setting the record straight or, you know, paying back to someone who's done something injustice to them or something weird.
And then you think about that this is for a team and its fan base for Los Ratones, which I actually think Cadrell's done a decent job from his position of trying to control the fan base, where he said, look, if people are going over into other chats and causing issues, report their name back to us and we'll ban them. That's not so much I've seen a lot of big fan bases too.
I can also confirm, even though, look, you can imagine, I have my own bias the other way to not like Los Ratones fans after the bazillion messages about the Reckless video I did. Yeah. But I will say there actually were some people, some rare instances within that community of even on that Twitter group of people saying stuff like, don't do stuff like this or whatever, or let's focus on supporting Reckless instead of doing it. There were a couple of people did that. So I will say there's been at least some gestures of that along the way.
Yeah, and I know that Carmine Core of some of their fan bases tried to do that over time as well, and I'm sure that every fan base has got like their hardcore fans which are trying to like rein in the culture a little bit. But this is the nature of just antagonism within LEC and in the internet as a whole. You've mentioned it about Twitter and the social spaces which we share. Of course, that becomes a big problem with something like Twitter, which is just so hard for people to get adequate context, which we've talked about in multiple different cases. Like people think that I talk shit about T1 on Twitter. They don't realize that actually I praise them an awful lot on other social media platforms, or this could be any other team. Right. And people take issue with that because you don't get that full context. And it obviously applies to stuff like Twitter as well, where, oh God, like, I mean, I made a tweet about like Kazi making like a really good play the other day, and then just immediately the replies like, well, they still fucking lost India, and I'm just making like a tweet about like a guy making a play. You don't have the context here. But yeah, I feel like the last few years has just been about antagonism, and I actually wonder how much of the eyebrow raise has to go towards Riot and not reining in some of the co-streamers too on this too, because I actually think,
by the way, I'll even say I'll offer you a little olive branch here. Oh, don't worry, my Twitter is hella antagonistic, but I'm not doing it to run up the numbers, and I do it for the love of the game. I was a hater from day one. I didn't do this cynically to try and capitalize on markets and I was just hating from day one for the love of the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I saw a guy with blonde hair. He moved backwards once in a team fight. I thought you should step forwards and say, you know what, I hate forever. That's it. It's over. That's all I need. I mean, lock me for 10 years.
I think LEC has maybe been a bit afraid of trying to rein in co-streamers because they're so much of their brand now. I mean, how effectively can you move how effectively can you move to an eBite or a Kometo or a Cadrell and say, actually, you know, this is negative for the product, this is negative about XYZ, and actually we need something constructive now between co-streamers and the broadcast, so it doesn't feel like they are separate products competing with each other and actually in some cases undermining each other. I think that's a horrible situation to be in, where it feels like you're not building towards this whole community where you have different aspects of the fandom working together to create varied content for people who want to have a different flavor on it. Instead, actually, you've now got pieces which are undermining each other and tearing down the community bit by bit. And I do actually wonder how much over time, and it's quite hard to kind of roll that back now, but I wonder how much over time with perhaps LEC, I don't know how much they have done in the past. I'd imagine they have talked to certain owners and certain fan bases before. Could they have, and should they have, done that more to contain this antagonism before it got out of control?
I have to say though, like from what I've seen from the three big co-streams, right, is that it's like what happens on those streams and what they communicate. I've never seen anything like come out that is like bad. I think that's important to like state and to notice like what happens on the streams. I've only seen like peaceful things and good things, and I do think that maybe you can do more to maintain your fan bases, but I think also there is a limit to it. But my anecdotal experience, right, is like from interacting with the fan bases, right, which is I remind you this is anecdotal, is that the backlash from anything Casey related is the harshest I've ever experienced ever. And it was like I remember like Spanish fans back in Origin days, and that was like mild, that was nothing. And then usually it's like my interaction with the Spanish fans, usually they just meme on me, like they meme on me, say it's like all I do is pick Nami, and then like they make like weird highlight videos with like me voicing some shit in Spanish. It's like it's very playful, you know. It's like they make it fun. That's like cool. I don't give a shit about that. But there was this moment, for example, after I was kicked out of KC, I'm co-streaming with Dom, and then like it was the mildest co-stream ever, where the joke that Dom was making all the time was as Casey was losing because we were live viewing LEC, he was just saying, I guess they should kick the coach then. That was the only thing that he said. And then I got spammed with messages, and spam is like, you are spending time with really bad people. They're infecting your brain. They're like, I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, I don't care about this. But then there was another instance when Casey went to first stand, and I posted a print screen of Yike versus Umti, right? And Umti played Nocturne into Yike, and he was 3 levels ahead, on the CS ahead, and I was in shock. And my tagline was, wow. That's all I wrote. And I got, like, people came into my Twitch channel. They were telling me telling me bad things about myself, about my family, that I should kill myself. And it's like, yo, relax, you know? It's just my anecdotal experience has been with the French community. The vitriol is insanely fucking harsh and very, very like, boom. While like T1 fans, you know, it's just like, oh, you disrespect Faker, you disrespect Gumiushi, he won world championships, you don't know anything. That's like, I know that. That's something that I've seen. But with Casey, with the Casey side, the French side, the whiplash is like so immense that my anecdotal experience is that from that side it comes out at me the worst.
I will say as well, just for the sake of it not just being Los Satoras and Kami Kopfa, MCOI fans can definitely do it too. Like I can tell you, and she doesn't do it. Yeah. She only does occasional posts about this, but I can tell you, both Shocks and Law have definitely had it where anything they say that is viewed as like negative about MCOI, in Law's case, they just assume she's a KC fan because she's French. And then in the case of Shocks, like, bro, she can't even do the sort of joke she'd do about Fnatic or G2 if they lost. She has to be really careful because people just perceive it as like you're attacking us, etc. So I will say, MCOI fans, they're not involved in this particular drama we're talking about now, but they've certainly played a role too. That's why I do generally agree. I do think overall it is like having these massive zealot-like fan bases. The problem I have is I don't think you can act like you have zero influence over them as literally checks notes an influencer who is leading them like culturally. I think you can have a little bit of like, you can push them a little bit, or you can encourage certain types of behavior more than others maybe.
Yeah, I think that, no, anecdotally, no, I've actually had a very good experience with the Spanish fans, actually, and the French fans too. Personally, I've never had crazy amounts of vitriol directed at me, but I've seen how it's affected people that I've worked with. So I've definitely seen, particularly on broadcast, I reckon we've probably had a bigger negative impact from the Spanish fans, and particularly around that Euphoria episode and how things kind of span out of control from that.
Wasn't that even really implied? That's one of the reasons they also shut down the Euphoria, was exactly the sort of fan backlash, right?
I would imagine it played into it. It's very hard not to, because it felt like that just never went away. But yeah, I mean, technically this is going to happen with any fan base, right? But we've highlighted a couple of fan bases where the worst parts of it can, especially if you're the one which is in their eyes, it does get really, really problematic. I've mentioned, like, weirdly, some parts of the T1 fan base actually don't realize how much pro T1 content I make, and they come after me and I'm like, guys, I'm actually relatively, in the grand spectrum of things, relatively on your side when it comes to the content for this stuff too. And yeah, kind of backtracking to something that Yamato said too, in terms of, well, there's nothing really been that crazy bad on the co-streams, and that's true. I think that on the whole, they play it fairly neutral on that point, and that makes sense. And if they've got someone which is disgruntled to them, I understand that. I mean, you're allowed to talk about that too. I'm just worried. I'm worried that over time there might have needed to be a scaffold put in place to actually build bridges more and actually have something being like, if you're co-streaming the LEC, there needs to be more bridges built to avoid a situation like this, where you do actually, so at some point, mandate them having more integration with the actual LEC stream, or perhaps even other co-streamers at that point, to try and make sure it's less about that antagonism to avoid this kind of situation we're in. I know some people really wouldn't vibe with that because it feels like at that point you're trying to like artificially create quote-unquote friendships. You don't have to create friendships, but you do need to build an atmosphere where actually the main players do have some kind of dialogue between each other, and it allows some of the community crossover to avoid the situation that we're in now.
Well, I do think though, like I agree with you, but majority of time, like all the big three, they are homies. They are friends, like they have good interactions.
So why not on stream?
but in on stream too. But the main thing is that the main thing that was the catalyst for like any animosity, right, was how LEC implemented Los Ratones, right? It's like, I think it was a good decision, and my take was that I assumed that all the LEC teams agreed, but then it turned out that they didn't, which made it very awkward. And then in that process, I think that's where like the dilution of the winter split, and then having the teams come in, and then having like lack of clarity on if like Team Heretics, who had the academy team, and KCB come in, like what's going to happen with that. Like the way they Riot and LEC managed the whole process of including two teams, that is the one that is that is the one that was like the catalyst for any form of pain, because the entire dialogue around that, how the fans interacted with that, because I didn't necessarily think that anyone had issues with one another, but the owners of the teams in the LEC were angry, and that's how it came across. And then there was like the guy from Overactive, the CEO, was tweeting at Kado random shit, and like I think that was like the first time where there was some kind of friction, because before that it's like it's all roses, all good, all chill. But I think that how the LEC managed the process of making LEC versus, that was something that just wasn't handled elegantly, because otherwise I've only seen like good interactions between like Kameto and Kejul and Ibai too. So I feel like that one is the one that is weird, because like,
well, that's the one area I will say where like I don't think you can totally control it, because as you say, you can be friendly on stream, but I'll tell you that's one area where this is actually the part I don't like about this sort of fan behavior, where it is what you call parasocial, where people at home are thinking they actually know you because you're on their screen, and they associate you as if you were like a friend of the family or their brother or someone they know at school. And unfortunately, in this particular case, I can tell you I've had this happen to me many times. Like, I'll give you an example. This is some old school law hits people have to remember 5 years ago. In 2020, I once had a literal 5-minute falling out with LS on Twitter. And even though they would have known if they'd kept reading his Twitter that he like went on stream with me, on a call with me privately, we hashed it all out. There was no issue. It was a misunderstanding. And he even did a tweet. This was on his birthday, saying like, look, if you guys really want to do something on my birthday, please don't attack Thorin. He's a mate of mine. He's done a lot of things for me over the years. There were fans of his, mate, thousands of his fans who know we're friends. They even know we've been friends for years, who their whole take was like, this is where they were acting like a weirdo third friend in the circle who wasn't. Their whole take was sort of like, no, LS, you shouldn't let him do that though. Like, the way he spoke to you though was unacceptable. Say, who are you? You're not actually in this group. You do realize that. Like, me and LS are the friends. Like, you don't get like a vote on it. It's not a fucking Twitch chat poll where if you all vote, he goes, actually, I retract my apology. Like, in that scenario, you've gotten over invested in the screen there, guys. You're shouting at the TV and thinking it hates you. Like, that's just a bit weird. So unfortunately, that part, I don't think you can fix that part. Like, if people are going to essentially take it into their own hands to like enact the internet street justice on you because you did the wrong thing or didn't say a thing in a way they liked, then they're going to do that anyway. I think even if Ibai says don't do it and Kamel says don't do it and Cadrell says I'm actually friends with them, hey, we're going to do a call, etc. You know, there's also just a weird thing. Also, I did another classic saying. You know, the one that says familiarity breeds contempt. I think half of why people get really pissed off with talking heads is just they're sick of seeing them on their screen. Now, I'm sorry, in that case, we don't actually control who appears on your screen. That's things like your algorithm, what you click on. By the way, if you don't know also about how Twitter works, the longer you spend reading and replying to posts about me or Dom or something like that, the more of them you will get. You will get those all in your algorithm as a result. So even though you might just think, I wish Thorin didn't exist, then don't interact with anything to do with me, for real. Just don't even skip past it, click it, not interested, block. That's the only method you got, because otherwise, I get why to people. Like, the joke is people like Dom and Cadril have been mates the whole time, but man alive, there'll be someone who's a T1 fan, who's a Cadril fan, who hates Dom guts and thinks he's evil and he's trying to have the downfall of T1 or whatever. Even though, by the way, I wouldn't even say it. That's how, if you're T1, you really are the most lucky org in the history of the world. What, you had the insane downfall losing to Fearx, right, when Dom's actually having to be like slightly professional and do like fucking coaching and shit, and can't just imagine the field day he would have had like 2 years ago on fucking his stream. He'd probably actually had like fucking set off party poppers, skywriting, you know, celebrate good times. Come on.
Favorite trucks, bro.
Yeah. He'd probably have a VicLa cosplay, you know, everything, bro, everything. I think that's enough on that drama anyway. I thought it was just a generalised one where I just thought it was rich that KC people were complaining. Give shit these fans. They're really out of control, sending horrible messages. And we're all just like that fucking meme of James Franco, like, first time. First time. We've all been hung about 1,000 times every reality week, you lunatic, for the last 3 years. Also, I just thought in your case, Yamato, you know what? You're obviously just cursed, mate. You just attract these fan bases. You've been in Fnatic. You've been in fucking Carmine Corp and lots of tournaments. What, you trying to raise the arm of the undead or something? What are you trying to do, mate?
You're gonna move to Marvel Rivals to TSM.
I know. What is this? What is this? You're just collecting them all.
It's just like, bro, I'm just in the biggest fan bases, the biggest teams. You know how it is. You know, that's how I move. You know.
All I'm saying is, if out there Galatasaray or fucking Fenerbahce want to start a League of Legends team, Yamato's your man. He's already to coach your fan base and take the ultras to the top of the league. You know.
Fun thing is they both used to have teams. I'm pretty sure they both used to have teams, and now they're both gone. So you're gonna have to revive it again.
True. Now here's the thing, though, Yamato. Obviously, there's a lot of accusations that people in League of Legends, maybe even certain coaches, are actually bald frauds. Well, you know what? If they were bald frauds, maybe they were coaches, you know, they have a gig every now and then, they come 10th, they don't make playoffs, you know, they're fucking guys, they go on talk shows. What would you suggest for them if they wanted to no longer be bald? What could they do?
You know, it's just very simple.
Welcome back.
Well, thank you. It's very simple. It's time to use hymns, you know, when hair starts to thin and, you know, at the same time as your hair thins out, your confidence also thins out. And that, of course, affects your everyday life. And that's what makes hymns so perfect and simple. You can feel like yourself again by just having easy access to personalized care that fits your life and, of course, your hair goals. I'm on finasteride. I've said it multiple times. I take finasteride, you know. I still have my hair. I'm wearing a cap. Like it's just that my hair is kind of cooked today. That's why I'm wearing a cap. I have my hair and I'm planning to keep it. I'm doing a little bit of preventative medicine, and that is working for me. I feel like my hair is growing out better. So you can start early instead of late. I think the ease of access is the big one, because I remember back in the old days, you know, you had to go to the doctor and do a bunch of mumbo jumbo to do this. Now you can just have an easy online, of course, consultation. Just instead of sitting in a waiting room, you know, doing the whole doctor visit. I don't understand what it is with doctors' rooms, because there's a waiting room, and then from the waiting room they put you in a different waiting room, and in that waiting room the doctor comes in, he looks at you and says, "I'll be right back. I'm coming in 10 minutes." And then you're waiting in the room that you're supposed to be in, and you get to skip all of that, because HIMS makes expert care accessible on your schedule. So you can just skip the line and get to, you know, business. HIMS offer convenient access to a range of prescriptions, hair loss treatments with ingredients that work, including chews, oral medications, serums, and sprays. So you can take it however you want, oral, you know, topical, whatever. Doctor-trusted ingredients like finasteride and minoxidil can stop further hair loss and regrow hair in as little as 3 to 6 months. There is no reason why you shouldn't feel like yourself. So for simple online access to personalized and affordable care for hair loss, ED, weight loss, and more, visit hims.com/LFN. That's hims.com/LFN for your free online visit. hims.com/LFN. Featured products include compounded drug products which the FDA does not approve or verify for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. See website for full details, restrictions, and important safety information. Individual results may vary based on the studies of topical and oral minoxidil and finasteride.
Yeah, basically, in short, don't let male pattern baldness be your nemesis, where one bad crown shot could ruin the whole thing. You want to feel like a boss. You don't want your morale low where you're going to wreck less. Now, you're probably going to go, how am I going to make value work here? Listen, even Nymaera couldn't do that. Anyway, back onto the show.
Oh, God.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back.
Bro, I can't even be mad at that, bro. You're spitting bars. It is what it is. You know?
It wasn't bad.
Kind of smoking.
Okay. Right, okay. By the way, there is actually also some other stuff we can talk about here. So obviously, in light of the changing scenario, we've had some of the playoffs now in LEC, etc. I have another one for you, which is who is going to be the winner of LEC versus, as of having only seen the first round of the playoffs. So Polymarket, again, they have up one of their markets. At the moment, Carmine Corp leads, they're at 38%. G2 is up to 28% because obviously they've come on strong. They've actually shown some of their game finally as expected. MCOY is at 22%, still out of it. After that, it's a massive drop. Na'Vi right down at 9%. Vitality 4%. Essentially, everyone else borderline irrelevant. So who is going to, as of right now, we only know the first round, who is going to win the LEC? And is one of these the number you would appreciate based on the percentages according to Polymarket traders?
Honestly, this might be a crazy one, but I've had this feeling since like kind of day one. I just have a strong feeling about Koi. I know.
Ooh, okay.
This whole goofy circumstance with the pause and all that jazz. But in terms of watching the games in the regular split, how Elioya has been playing is just so insanely good. I think he's so insanely precise.
Might be the best jungler, right?
Yeah. In a jungle pool that's very competitive, like I think that the Ike has been up there too, Rylek and Elioya. But I think in terms of what Elioya does, I think is what is going to give like longevity, you know, in the sense that as like even the game against us that we beat them, I think they were playing too good where they expected us to keep up with the same beats. Because if in that early game they just decided to dive us and to kill us when the opportunity showed, I think that they could have snowballed that game a lot harder. But in reality, like we got away with like Caitlyn now being in the bot tower and we were like surviving to the point where we got to scale. The point being is like them playing too good is more of a thing that I think this is something that is going to really be a big benefit as the playoffs continues, because playing too good in terms of what the macro is going to provide them consistency in the early game. And in additional detail, I think that Supa and Alvaro are laning better than they ever had, like in the history of them playing together. I think their lane phase is actually a strength in a lot of points, and I think that the duo queue part of it is just helping super much. I remember last year, Alvaro playing range supports was a big, massive meme, but I do think that him playing range supports now is something that he's added to his pool, and I do think that he has champion pool depth. The only worry I have, the biggest worry in terms of MCOY and what if I play the devil's advocate against myself, is that Jojopyun's level in the regular split, it just hasn't been good. And I do think that 16-3 with the patch changes, I do think that's something that can be helpful to him, and I do think that Jojopyun needs to play a lot better at a level that he's shown in the past in order for MCOY to be a top competitor. I just think that in regards to how they play and progress games, I do think that holistically it makes a lot more sense than what we've seen in past years, and I think that they are shoring up some of the weaknesses they showed in last years. But I can make an argument for G2, I can make an argument for KC2. It's kind of like a gut feeling, but I do think it's one of those three, and my gut call is MCOY, even though I can argue against myself too.
Walt?
Yeah,
you obviously get an insane return on 22% as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the thing for me, like, that holds me back from MCOY, well, I mean, look, MCOY definitely have the ceiling, and I think you can see those flashes of it, where they clearly, when they're in, like, a transitionary point in the game where they need to move between lanes, move between objectives, you can see that Yora and Alvaro really know where they need to be. But this team has just been so lazy, it feels like, this split. And I feel like they're starting to shake off that rust. But, you know, you've talked about Super and Alvaro's laning phase. One of the biggest things that's held them back is Super's just random mid-game to late-game throws. And he's had that from last last year, but he hasn't got rid of that. Obviously, in the game versus you guys, he was just getting like randomly caught out, just way away from his team. That cannot afford to happen. You can't do that in high pressure games, because it felt like both him and Jojo both took turns and just getting randomly caught out, misplaying and throwing the game. And the question is, when does that stop? Because I do think that MKOI they're going to get better, and I think they'll get stronger and stronger as time goes on, and I think they'll probably get better than the other top teams. So the question is, how fast is that going to happen, and how much time needs to pass before they surpass a team like G2? Because I think some people will be feeling better about G2 because they demolished the matchup the other day, right? When they went through is Heretics, right? Was their first round matchup? Yeah, they demolished them. But Heretics didn't show us anything. You know, I didn't find out anything which I needed to learn about G2. What I've learned about G2 is the same thing that we found out from regular split. If Caps is ahead on a winning lane, G2 look really good. We didn't learn anything outside of that. I suppose we learned that Skewmond, when he's playing around a map which is ahead, is still fantastic. I think Skewmond on the whole has probably been G2's best player. It's him or Caps. I've really enjoyed Skewmond, right? And as Yamato has been saying, it's been a very competitive jungle pool. So for me, I look at these numbers and I flip G2 and MKOI, because I think that eventually MKOI will get better than G2, and I haven't seen enough from G2 in the first round matchup to give me any sort of movement of the needle as to how good they are. I mean, BB didn't look fantastic in lane matchups again. That will be a problem against players like Counter later into the bracket. And even someone like Knock, right? Yeah, I think that this is the question is, can this become not a 3-horse race, and could we include a team like Na'Vi? No, not for title, I don't think. I think that LEC is really good, but I think if you come up into high pressure matchups later on into the bracket, the lanes just aren't going to do it. Eventually, when it comes into the best of 3s and best of 5s, the lanes will just not give LEC the platform he needs to win these games. I like Na'Vi. I think they're a very exciting team. They're the biggest overperformers of LEC this split, and I expect them to get better as time goes on. I don't think they've been very well coached. I think they're one of the best drafting teams. I think they're clearly well prepared. They just don't have like the resting pedigree to just mash lane against Canna, who's on form, or Caps, who's on form, or like Super Navarre, as you've been mentioning too, Yamato. So I think realistically, you do have to reduce it down to a 3-horse race. Personally, I still think KC are ahead. The only flaw they've shown is Yike not being great on soul engage. If they lack engage and it's on Yike's shoulders, the memes about the Vi come around again, and they're not great at transferring individual leads when Yike is the only go button. They have plenty of other options, of course, but that might be an issue at some point. But then again, if Busio's on Rakan, doesn't really become much of a factor after that point. So my only real big point here is I think G2 probably need to go down a rung, MKOI up a rung. Besides that, I think this is actually fairly accurate.
I have to say, I would just take KC at this point. I actually think, if anything, I think the value is that at the moment, because of G2 getting an easy run, etc., I think it actually allows it to look like it's more of a competitive. I actually think of those teams, I don't think G2 is going to win this split personally. Like, I've yet to see them ever play like top level league. Look, I'll give them this one factor, which is it's the same roster, so there is a world where you can have the whole like fucking, form is temporary, classes permanent thing, where like some of what they did last year comes back into play as time goes on. I'll shade in a 5% or 10% chance that can happen. But as of what I've seen so far, KC should just win the league, mate, especially once we get to the BO5. So my problem is the only person on KC I even have to question is, will the guy be good in the BO5s? Like, assuming he is, though. By the way, he's pretty much passed all the tests so far. I don't really see what the problem is. And one of my biggest problems is I do think, actually, still, same as last year, the biggest mismatch in European League of Legends is the top laners. And Canna just fucking runs the LEC. And the only person, I agree with you earlier in the convo, the only person I think is comparable is Nako. And Vitality isn't a good enough team, unfortunately. Like, if you put Vitality, the problem Vitality and Na'Vi both have is, in these BO3s, they could have some interesting potential against the right opponent. But if you put them in a BO5, I just don't think they can win. So I've got to say, I would take KC. I actually like that angle myself. Also, if people check, this actual market has a lot of volume. It has $238,000 worth of volume at the moment. And actually, most of the money is on G2. There's 43,000 volume on them. So it's quite interesting. I have to say, I would take Karming Corp at this point in time. I think you get them an excellent sort of percentage chance, 38% chance to win, according to the traders. Okay,
like we could do the LCK parallel could work. It's like KC is currently the GenG, G2 is the T1, BFX is Na'Vi, and then MKOI is if How Life was good. Like,
wow,
I like that. Okay.
That's basically where we are. Because
everyone needs to understand that Yamato just called Super like Super UC. That's the one takeaway you've got from this now.
just to add on Casey as well, I do think they look very similar to how they looked when they won Winter last year, where basically individually they just are going to win in team fights. Like individually, this team just is insane. Like mechanical ceiling is insane on this team. And I think in the long run, leadership and macro and all these details that we like about the other teams is going to be the winner in my mind. I do think like MKOI G2 will scale into the year because it's hard for me to imagine that Casey is going to be like a massive strategic force. But if they manage to piece that together with Zeph and Reaper, it just that's going to be the challenge, because I think that they draft very basic, draft very simple, and I wonder where the depth is, because I think if they manage to add the macro depth and they manage to add the draft depth too, then I think that this team could be like the best team coming out of Europe for international events easily, because of that mechanical seeding, because that's something that you just can't, give to players. Like either they have that or not. And I do think that this is a team that does. I just have faith in the G2 and the MKOI construction and the fact that they have so much experience together. And I am intrigued to see Reaper, especially, like that's a guy I have my eyes on because he has a big project here. It's just that he didn't manage to put it together as the season ended with his really strong C9 rosters. So this is going to be like a very different environment, but I'm curious to see how that pans out, because it's kind of similar in a different way, where you have very talented individual players, and then in the long run, you have to make them work together super sharp. And the other detail of what you could consider maybe is that I do think that if there's a single inconsistency on Casey right now that stands out, it would be Busio. I feel like he has great games and he has also very bad games. And I wonder if people take him off his comfort, if that is a way to attack him. Because there was that game they lost against Vitality where Busio on Alistar looked awful, right? Which is a little glimpse. I think that Busio over time is going to be really, really good. But I do think that getting used to and getting comfortable with the LEC is something that is happening real time.
I think he won the Alistar game. I think he was on the Bard when they lost in regular season, I think.
What was the when Vitality played Ezreal Karma? Wasn't he playing Alistar? I think he completely ran it down.
If it was versus Vitality, wasn't.
They played against Ezreal Karma. Let me just pull it up just to make sure.
Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to derail you. That's actually really unhelpful. My bad.
No.
He won on Bard.
If I'm wrong.
He won on Bard. So which game are we talking about here? He won both his Bard games this split.
Oh, sorry. No, I actually might have. No, sorry. I might have actually just completely. Yes, sorry.
Yeah, it was against. It was Alistar. It was Alistar.
Yeah, all good.
Nice, Nymaera, man. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's me. Sorry. Yeah, I really just gotta really undermine you just before I go out.
Right now.
Yeah, well, I really like that one shot of the DNA on the Raptor's face.
The DNA on the Raptor's face. What kind of fucking Jurassic Park have you been watching?
He actually got
Jurassic 90s.
That isn't Jurassic Park. He got the DVD bootleg Jurassic Parked. That's when the DNA was on the Raptor's face. Exactly right. Okay, there you go. And they found a really old gist sample trapped in amber from thousands and millions of years ago, and they brought it back to life.
Oh my god!
Okay, explains a lot.
Whoops.
Anyway, by the way, there's actually another issue we can talk about here, though, which is, even though we already did the Fnatic Vitality one, there was actually some. By the way, it's like Fnatic were like, what? It's the loads of drama around teams and all accountability. Fuck, let us get back in on that sweet Fnatic action where our own fans hate us. So Grabs, as usual, it's been his whole career. He just plays defense for his teams. And he's simultaneously done a mixture of what he attempted good PR mixed with some bad PR. So he did an interview with Sheep Esports where he just openly says that they still don't have enough staff. If people don't know, Nightshare, the brother of Freeze, who was the coach of Fnatic like 3 years ago or something, one of the things he said while he was in Fnatic afterwards, and to this day, every few months, still tweets when Fnatic fails, is why do they still not have like a full coaching staff? Like, where's the sports psychology trainer? Where's the assistant coaches? And essentially, for whatever reason, they always just sort of do the Sam Matthews, like, oh, we're taking on into account guys, and then they never seem to do it. So it's been confirmed again by Grabs that it just is what it is, and they just don't have the coaching staff. But then also, in this Twitter thread, when Grabs has come out and taken accountability, when some fans being like, well, you're the one that approved the roster. He was like, yeah, I agree. It is my fault then. So I want to get what everyone's take on this is. What is your take on this? Obviously, Fnatic has been somewhat underwhelming, but what do you think of the whole grabs angle? The fact that Fnatic don't have the staff apparently anywhere want to go? Where we're starting?
You know, I feel bad for grabs. Sorry, Nymaera. After what you did to me, I get to start now.
Yeah, I'm
kidding. No, but like I do think that the interview it's similar to the previous topic, right? It's like, you know, you steer clear out of controversy in most cases if you want to have a clean image. Even if you have the right take, people are going to interpret it in whatever way they want to. Like, that's always going to happen. So in a lot of cases, it's better to just not say anything. And in this case, like, grabs, I think the spin that people took, because what grabs is saying, it's like teams have succeeded with small coaching staffs. Teams have succeeded. That's okay. I think his frustration is in the fact that he was promised something and then wasn't given that. And then I think that he didn't really, in that same interview, he made it clear that it's like the team level is bad and they have things to work on and things to improve on. And them having less coaching staff isn't the reason why. It was just something that he was frustrated about. And obviously, the community is going to run with the narratives. It's like, oh, they're losing because they don't have a coaching staff, and that's going to make grabs look bad or this look bad. Obviously, we have a situation where he was promised something and the promise wasn't kept. But I don't think he's using that as an excuse at all, because I'm looking at it in a good faith way. Because I know grabs has worked in teams where there were only two people. Like grabs and Duffman was the only duo, and that was it. Yes. And then they had like one analyst, like in 2020 maybe on G2 or whatever. Young Buck was sold on G2 back when they won splits and when they joined G2. I've gone to Worlds being practically alone. Like he's been through that and he's done it. And I think the frustration comes with the fact that he was promised something and it was very alone. And then after a loss was caught in an interview. And that's it. I think this is a way of using public pressure to put Fnatic's feet under fire again, because I do think that if things are not changing internally, this is a method that you can do. Like if your org is promising you shit and they're not giving you that, this is a way to put pressure on them, right? Because they care about public opinion, and this has been a long-standing issue for a very, very long time with Fnatic, and now it just appears again.
I think also adding into this too, which I think this stems from other stuff from the offseason, because Fnatic and Grabs is very vocal about trying to get a team which viewed the game in a more similar way. And that was why one of the reasons why Mickey left, because Mickey didn't view the game in the same way that Grabs did. Obviously, Mickey tried to do his own kind of GMing in the offseason, like recommending players, and obviously that didn't work out for him, and he wanted to take that project elsewhere. And one of the things which Grabs talked about was basically the only two people putting forward their ideas for the game, at least in his words, were Razork and Upset. Now, that gives some questions about what happened with Humanoid earlier in the year, because if those two other players were still there and then Humanoid was there too, also imparting that conversation. One of the things which Grabs wanted to do is bring in more people to the team that would bring stuff to the conversation that would allow it to not just be antagonistic between Upset and Razork, and to have a more of a dialogue between all of the members on the team. Perhaps that's why they ended up like removing Poby, bringing in Vladdy, and then trying to bring in someone that worked with Vladdy before, hopefully more vocal players in terms of their ideas for the game. And one of the things why I think that's important to the coaching conversation is that people forget that players are also part of the coaching staff too, in a way. You know, players bring their own game knowledge. Players will teach each other. Players are the ones at the end of the day that have to make the calls on the Rift as well. So teams like 2019 G2, largely the coaching staff were facilitators for the game knowledge of the players on the Rift in a lot of ways, because you had very knowledgeable, outspoken players that had a good dialogue with each other and could build up each other's understanding of the game and their understanding of the meta with it. I think one of the biggest failures for Fnatic was obviously they have failed in trying to create an atmosphere where players add on to each other's understanding of the game and help coach each other. I don't think that happens. And if you watch what's happening on the Rift, of course, we talked about Fnatic in terms of gameplay, it looks like they don't trust each other on the Rift anymore, much like we saw in previous iterations of Fnatic falling apart. I think one of the reasons why the coaching issue then becomes a bigger problem is that more coaching staff, having positional coaches, more people behind the scene, blah, 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 that helps bring players onto the same page if they're not already there. I think the lack of chemistry just exacerbates this existing issue where the players are just clearly not adding to each other's understanding of the game.
By the way, they also expect more of this as well. Like as soon as Fnatic gets eliminated, then later in the year, if they don't make Worlds, the Grabs is always going to do this approach where he just tries to shield the players. My problem is this, though, is I think he's gone too far with it, because it's one thing if you do it like in a big moment, but like you can't shield all the responsibility from the players though. Like at the end of the day, they are the ones fucking up the game. They are the ones not practicing. In this particular case, some of them are even potentially deficient in something that coaching staff could add to. Because that's why, to me, even though in this case his tweet implies it was overplayed in the like interview that he did about the staff or whatever, it's not the excuse. At the same time, though, it is being offered as like this is a reason things aren't ideal at the team. Whereas I agree with you, Marto. Like, people have made it work with fuck all skeleton staff, and at the end of the day, like it's even implied in teams like T1, maybe they barely even do coaching. Maybe Faker just fucking runs the team, and they just go yes sir, no sir, and then sign a piece of paper that says it was their fault, not Faker's, or something. Like, who the fuck even knows? You could even argue it's like a proxy to make fans not attack Faker in T1. So I do feel like it's a bit overblown. Like the real problem is there's plenty of other teams don't have a huge coaching staff but beat the fuck out Fnatic, you know. That's my issue. We can't do that thing in Fnatic where we pretend like G2 exists and then everyone else sucks. Like they don't, do they? Like Army Corp's doing great at the moment, guys. You know what I mean? Like there's a whole bunch of people are. There is actually some let's do some LCS. Fuck it. Let's talk about some LCS, shall we, boys? So obviously, let's just start here. So far in LCS, the problem I have had getting into the league this year goes like this. I actually feel a little bit like I've been sold a false bill of goods, because when I saw the rosters in the off season, and even rosters I normally wouldn't look at and go, that's interesting, like the Lion one, if I hear Inspired's in and that's the one he's chosen, and hopefully it's not only for money and he really believes in these players, then I'm thinking, actually, you know what? Finally, this isn't just going to be a couple of good teams and then everyone else sucks and they just feast on them and then we have to wait till they go international. This was supposed to be the split where I was supposed to, for real, get like 3 or 4 really good rosters, and then, you know, there was maybe even the FlyQuests of the world could be in the mix here. And instead, we've actually ended up, I think, with a fairly weak group of LCS teams so far. Like at the moment, Cloud9 just looks like they're the one team, like it's a one-team region again. And even then, people would probably say they're maybe even getting overhyped because they're just the best team in their region and everyone else looks way worse. And obviously, as you just saw, like FlyQuest getting to play them twice made FlyQuest worse. If anything, it didn't make them better. They didn't improve. It got even worse, the gap for the BO5. So where are we at on the region generally? And is Cloud9 really that far ahead? Is someone going to challenge them? Where are we at?
In my mind, right, when it comes to C9, I feel like they just started off so well. Like I think the main thing is that they are the roster that carries like a lot of experience, and Team Liquid do too, which I think that one is like the biggest question mark as to why they are not performing. I think Dom also mentioned like on a stream that like scrim-wise, Team Liquids are like a lot better than they're showing. Something is like weird with them. Like they should be like the team for us to look out for, but it's just not happening on stage. They just look different, which is something to highlight. In regards to the other rosters like FlyQuest, obviously it's like a complete rebuild project. They have a lot of let's say growing pains to go through. You have seen like glimpses and moments of let's say talent, individual talent, like with Griffin, but you could also see that the loss that they had weighed so heavy on them in the sense of they now play against an opponent that they lost against already, and you could see the psychological effect of needing to like overplay. Like they were definitely like overplaying, and they were doing things that just looked so uncharacteristic. And I've seen that before. Like I remember a series that we played back in 2022. The first time in playoffs we played against G2, we beat them, but then when we played them again in game, like all the players just became very desperate because everyone could see that the game was just slipping away. And when people get desperate, they look worse because they're trying to hold on to things that just don't exist. And you're trying to win the game on every moment possible. It's like, oh, we have an opportunity to fight. We need to win the game here. Similar to, let's say, FlyQuest before they benched Jensen for Quad, when they were playing at that MSI, when they were like, oh, every team fight needed to be the game-winning team fight, and they're just trying to get out of the game. They didn't feel comfortable in the game, which is understandable with the lack of experience and coming into that matchup against C9 after losing against them. But looking at LCS as a whole, I think C9 just their experience together and then adding APA and the implementation of APA to the team and really utilizing his entire skill set has been a massive plus for them. APA looks better than ever. But in regards to the rest of the league, I guess I can add on Lion as well. I wasn't really hyped for this roster in the first place because it was built with like the wrong reasons. Obviously, I'm looking at the story here, and it's just like big money spent here on getting names that are exciting on a list and making sure that they have like a payoff, and then you're kind of filling in with the pieces that you need to, because you have to of course fulfill rule sets, while the other teams that have built, let's say Team Liquid, that have built their roster, or C9, they have like these powerful green card holders, and they've managed to find the NA residents that are actually like powerful to have on your roster, whether it's Yeon or Blabber. And I think being in that position, I was never really excited for Lion, but at the same time, I didn't think they would be as weak as they are. Like I did think that their individual power and Inspired and Berserker would just like mean a little bit more. But right now, I don't see the upside in terms of their team play. It just looks so far from a team identity. So I'm hoping Team Liquid kind of shore it up. But otherwise, I'm in agreement that this is like a one-team region. And C9, I understand the jab, and I'm really biased because I love Dom, right? I'm very biased. I understand the jab that the region looks weaker as a whole, but just the eye test, I do think that C9 are playing really, really good league in terms of understanding what the correct beats are, in terms of how they draft. And the only question mark always for me with this C9 roster is how deep can Sven and Vulcan go in terms of their champion pool? Because I do think when they go deeper into series, how they pick champions becomes very wonky, because when they play, like when Sven plays modern champs, I don't think he's as good as when he's playing like facilitators in of course, let's say Varus. So that's the biggest challenge for C9. But I said a bunch of shit there, so someone take it away.
I will also say typically APA's been the guy with the champion pool issues, right, for C9 as well. And we just haven't seen them push that deep. And the only best of 5 we've seen for them just went to game 3 anyway. So it's exactly the same as saw from the best of 3s. I'm actually a little bit higher in NA, I think, just because I think Cloud9, I actually wonder if they're best team in the West right now. I actually wonder if they're better than LEC right now. So with that in mind, is it just the region's okay and C9 are good? Is it just that? And typically that's not been the case before. I think for many years it was just NA. They have one team, and even then they're not looking fantastic, and everyone else is kind of like fighting for the second seed. Then of course we had kind of the last few years of TL, FlyQuest, and C9 actually all fencing pretty well against each other, and FlyQuest then of course having the upper ceiling to do some real good damage even internationally. I think C9, the reason why they look so far ahead of the rest of the region is because they have by far the best early jungle meta read. And that's been so important for all these teams. I think of pretty much every team in LCS, I think a lot of their teams go very well or very poorly based on whether their jungle is ahead or behind. A team like Sentinels, I think that Hambak is very good when he's ahead of the game. I think when he gets put behind, he really struggles. I think that even like someone like Jose on Team Liquid, I think he's had some really good intros into some games too. I think that as a meta read, so much of NA has been about how do you get ahead and stay ahead from jungle and then transfer that into a winning map states. So that maybe what answers a little bit of the question about what's happening with Leon and Lion and how their carries are doing worse. Obviously, I think Saint just in general is really not playing that great right now. And I think that Berserker Nile's early game, just the entire early game from Leon, has not been sorted out enough to get Inspired into that point where normally you'd expect Inspired to run a region if it's about early game jungle pathing and about junglers getting ahead. That's just not been the case from Inspired, because that team play which Yamato is talking about hasn't given him the platform to be there. And then actually at that point, you can't give back that platform to Berserker to be the player that we know him to be as well. There was also an interview about Berserker, I can't remember who it's from, who was saying actually it felt like Berserker wanted to play more aggressively, but he's holding back. And I wonder whether that's just because the team doesn't know how to give him that envelope in the way that we know Berserker can just be a mechanical, just outplay guy and just brutalize you through that. But in terms of my overall view on NA, I'm actually a little bit higher on it. I think that, we have like some shit show games which are very entertaining, but the quality is a little bit iffy between Sentinels and DSG, right? Which I mean, I found them very entertaining, but God, I feel pretty fucking bad for like Lions, the player, right? Who just had a disgusting board game in the game fight, which kind of did things away. But at least, I look at players like Sargent and Kryra who's come in and think, okay, well, Disguised are better than I gave them credit for. Credit to them. I thought they'd be really rebuilding, and then they've done a lot better than I thought. I think Sentinels, I had a lot more issues with Handback earlier, and I feel like, again, at least the snowbally nature of him and Rahel playing from ahead as well mean that Sentinels are actually a very fun aggressive team when they're ahead. So while I do still think that we have very clearly Cloud9 and then very clearly FlyQuest, I'm not too down on the whole region. I guess the one thing is just Team Liquid need to step up. They should be much better than they're doing right now. And I suppose you could argue the same with Lion as well. So there are a couple of teams which we're waiting to see if they step up, but I don't feel that bad for the region on the whole.
I will say, I think Team Liquid have been a disgrace. Like, on paper, I actually thought they had like a sleeper chance to be like maybe even the best team, but they've been so underwhelming. And by the way, as of how things have gone so far, there's a very real world they just lose to Disguise now, mate. Like that's not even some outrageous statement. Like that could happen. Like it just hasn't gelled with the roster. I don't even think the players themselves are bad. I just don't think they've gotten the fucking This is the problem when you're making these Frankenstein NA rosters where it's like, oh, I'm going to take like a pure Korean top laner and have him play with a South American jungle. Like, okay, I mean, you could try it, but it just certainly sounds experimental, you know? Like, again, that sounds like a CB LOL move, if anything, not a fucking LCS move. So far, that hasn't worked, unfortunately. And they've even had the downside for me, which is, no matter what happened to a Team Liquid last year, you could put money in the bank that Yon would just be the best fucking ADC in the whole league. That hasn't even been the case in some of the games. He's had his own moments where, actually, believe it or not, it's been the much vaunted, you dare not touch them bot lane of Team Liquid that hasn't even been the best at times. So I think they've got problems across the board. By the way, on the whole C9 thing, I'll actually give you, normally I'm very against the idea when it's only them in their fucking region or getting a bullshit Worlds run of being like, the best Western team is this North American one, because it's always based on things like you beat the shit out of bad NA teams or you just got a fluky Worlds run. Here's why I'll actually give you, look, I still would take KC to beat them, but I'll tell you why I would give them a chance to be better than a bunch of the top LEC teams. Mate, they have Thanatos. Again, if you have a very strong top player right now, Naknako and fucking Canna short in LEC, you can be a very dominant position over the EU teams. I even think, by the way, the underrated thing about the climb of Na'Vi and fucking Heretics is their top laners have been pretty good. Those players have been somewhat revelations in top lane. Like, you actually look at them and you think to yourself, if you are a G2, mate, as Broken Blade with us on the Vine, you're not going to go for one of these players. Like, at this point, you're not going to get a Naknako who's already on Vitality. You need to get like a Tracer or a Mainter or something like that. These are the players that down the line can be hopefully the next what Broken Blade was 3 years ago. So, no, and lastly, on the APA thing, this is probably one of them. I made this point earlier when Dom first was discussed as the coach. This is the sort of player I'm interested to see Dom coach, because yes, when he was on his core stream, he would always be talking about how he hated how coaches, for example, didn't cynically coach draft against Adam, for example, or funny enough, APAs of the world. Like, his take was, if you're in the BO5 series, you do take the L on the like power picks just to get these guys off their comfort champions. You put them onto the picks that they haven't proven they can win the game on, or the competence works out. Well, the funny thing is, because he's coaching that guy instead of coaching against him, I'm with you. Here's what I want to see, and I haven't had a chance yet. I just want to know what happens when it's game 5. Because I believe APA can get through. First of all, he's got a couple of picks he's really good on. And then he's got the other ones. He'll pull off the Oriana and a Z game that are fine. The problem is this, though. If I have to go real 5 games deep in a series, what is he going to pick in game 5? And what is that conversation even like? Is it just pick whatever's left? Is it you have to give up your pick to help the competition? No one knows yet. That's the most interesting part about it. So I'm certainly interested to see whether Dom the coach is actually going to be similar to Dom the persona in that sense.
On my side, like, I think the APA thing is super interesting, how things like develop when they go deeper. But I also just eyes on that bot lane, you know, like they played they slammed Sivir into Kalista lane when they had to go deep into the 4-5s. I know that Sven to me is a damn legend. Even last year when he played like in the spring finals when they lost against FlyQuest, I thought he was the best performing player in that. I think he has a lot to offer, but I do think that he's very meta dependent, and I don't want to be in a situation where, like, can I imagine him winning and carrying the game on like Aphelios? That's hard for me to imagine. And I do think that you need to cover a very wide range. And I do think that sometimes there's flaws in how they lane specifically in bot lane. And if I pair them and I try to like kind of shadow box them against the LEC teams, I do think that the tougher the team they play against, the bigger the responsibility is on Thanatos. Like, he needs to be able to pick something on 5 and be the Zeus of this team, because this team needs firepower from somewhere. It needs to be Thanatos, because Ven is not going to be the person who carries. And I do think that that is going to be their biggest challenge as things progress, because I do think macro-wise and understanding what the concept of the game is right now, I do think that C9 could be like on the macro and the conceptual thing around the crabs and the drakes. I do think that you can make the argument on that point alone that they are the strongest in the West, but I do worry about qualification to games and how long and how far their draft can go, because I do think individually the teams in LEC do have more depth to them.
I have one more angle for you on LEC, boys. It goes like this. Being as I said earlier, a lot of actually the off-season and people's sense of the power of NA was based actually on this Lion team. The hope was Inspired's still the best Western player. True, yeah. He's got a team with young players. They're going to be studs. You know, it's all going to work out. Now, admittedly, he didn't get the roster. Yes, we get that. But even so, they've also looked way worse than just a team without the real top laner, mate. Like, they've had much worse problems. And if you look right now, if I'm going to tie and connect this to earlier in the convo, where actually a lot of people have sort of a little bit of a shine for FlyQuest, bros, logically, Lion's going to be out any day soon. Like, that's going to be out of the playoffs in last place, basically. So what would the thoughts for the squad be if we're going forwards and the first split's basically a write-off?
See who's mental boom the most and see if you can you replace someone mid-split? Like, surely this team, if it goes out,
I'll bring Bwipo back. I'm kidding.
Actually, how many residents have they got? So Saint and Berserker, they're 2 imports, right? So you have to I either replace one of them to get an import elsewhere, or I mean, who else do you even bring in, right? I mean, Zamado seems to be just completely out, right? I mean, Saint has really not impressed. Do you think about replacing him? Maybe.
Also, notice how that story, by the way, doesn't work as well now. Right? The story at the beginning of the split / the end of the offseason went like this. Oh, yeah, there's Amago guy hasn't got his visa, but don't worry, a lot of people haven't, and there's a lot of delays, and most of the team is, and 44% of the league is career now. The problem is, most of the other ones are here now. They're here now, guys. So unfortunately, now it looks bad. Like, mate, what did the Sama guy do? Is he one of those idiots who, when he got that like tick box, he was like, was I a member of the German government between 1939 and 45? Shit, maybe. Yes. Am I a terrorist? Well, you know, I have been known to play a bit of Counter-Strike. Yes. Like, what was he doing, mate? What were you doing? You know, what was going on? What was going on, mate? How do you feel this badly? What is this?
Sometime, oh god, I think Cadril talked about this on stream, where like he had a visa thing where he just like, or if you leave something's blank on visa registrations, it will choose the very first option, and if you leave enough things blank, so for instance, it can give you like, do you have a partner? Normally, if you just leave it blank, it goes to yes, and it's like, okay, well, what's their nationality? From Afghanistan? What's their age? Like 0 to 2 years old.
Okay.
Oh god.
Okay.
What have I just put in to my visa? Like, occasionally, if you just leave things blank, it will do that. I doubt that's the case there. God, I'm trying to think.
Certainly bad luck, though. I will say, like, I actually also feel for Inspired in that sense, because sadly, I can tell you, at the end, when people look back on a wiki, there won't be an asterisk where they'll go, oh, was that player out? They'll just think this was the real roster you picked, and it came 6th place or some shit, or 8th place. So it'll be a bad luck, unfortunately.
I think it's though, like, visa issues, no visa issues. I agree 100%. I just don't think Zamuda would be the solution. You know, like, it's tough. I don't know what this team should do. I think the biggest void is just how Saint is playing. That's very strange. I thought he had upside.
Remember, he was supposed to be the stud. He was supposed to be the one who was going to shit all over everyone. Yeah.
I don't know, bro. It always comes down to the same thing. It's like, can you survive the skill vampirism that you go through when you switch a region? Because we've had players come over. They are really good in the beginning, and then the meta shift happens, and then they need to keep up the level with solo queue, and then they play less solo queue, and then they're out of their own habit and out of their own comfort. Getting good and staying good in North America is really hard. I've always said that even when FlyQuest were competitive last year, I took G2 to beat them because I couldn't imagine a world where FlyQuest could improve regionally. Like, how do you do that? If your solo queue is ass and all your players are complaining about it, and they are right when they say it's ass, and your scrims are also like pointless to the point where you have an issue with the enemy team going to eat Korean barbecue, you know, like that. You know, how do you improve in the region? You know, like, it's like flowers growing in concrete. It's just very tough, very tough.
I don't know. I think it's just whacked up personally, mate. It's just over it. It's just over. Also, by the way, since you referenced it briefly, how ridiculous was this is just a quick sidebar, that actually ridiculous drama with Bwipo, where Bwipo went, remember, first of all, he was going to be the jungler of that team, for like Perks' team. Then he was just being like the coach of that fucking the Niski's no-name team. And then he joined and then immediately got like kicked because they were just like, this Bwipo guy's been saying stuff on the internet. It's like, where have you been? Where have you been for the last 5 years, you lunatic? Yeah, every time he's on... How's that news only just gotten to the order of MYZ esport or whatever the fuck? Like, that whole drama was so stupid. The joke is, at this point in time, for the lols alone, you should bring Bwipo and fucking bring him back, mate. You know what I mean? It's already gone to shit. Bring him in for the lols and start recording Breaking Point 2.0.
How did things go between Inspire? Yeah, do you just put him back into the octagon and just see who comes out on top, winner stays on?
Obviously, you just message fucking Bwipo, you up? And then he goes, yeah, of course, it's that time of the month where I go mental. And then just fucking whatever. And then he's just fucking listen. Anyway, the point is they're fucked, and Bwipo's fucked, and apparently people are recruiting Bwipo to their team, going, "Hello, Bwipo, nice to meet you." Bwipo, okay, well, let me just Google this. What the fuck? Bro? That guy has to release more information. How did you get to 2026 and not hear anything about Bwipo making statements on the internet? Like, what is this? What are we doing?
Yeah, I think
your team's nobody's like Bwipo was bringing some fame to that. I wasn't even aware he was still playing until I saw that story.
Wait, was that actually the reason why he was off the team, like that French team, like because of the drama?
I don't know if that's the reason, but like the owner guy said something about it. Wasn't it like the actual owner of the team?
Because all I saw was he was announced. It was like French. Was it? No, he was going to be on French Flair, and then he was gone, and then he went to be the coach of that other team. Yeah, you were right. That was the Niski one. And then like 10 hours later or something, he said, "Oh, actually, it's not."
Yeah, something like that.
And I seem to remember it something like, "Oh, well, coaching remotely and putting that much time into it wasn't an efficient use of his time," or something like that. I didn't see anything else besides that. So if there's extra context, I'm completely blind on that, by the way.
No, I remember the French player. No, sorry, Thorin. Go ahead.
No, go on.
No, I just want to say the French flair thing, right? Because they didn't know the rule set, which was goofy, because you can't have 3 players that played in the LEC or like in a tier 1 league.
Yeah, the veteran rule.
Yeah, the veteran rule. So that was kind of like funky, and they got approved, and then they didn't get approved, and then they need to like remove 1 player, and then Bwipo was the guy who got removed. But from the coaching side, I'm also out of the loop. I don't know how you went from.
Oh, am I confusing it when he helped the fucking VKS or something? It was some team he was recently doing something with, and someone came forward. Maybe it was the Brazilian team that I'm thinking of, but basically he was involved with some team, and then like one of their top people was sort of like, I can't believe the things this guy said about women, like referencing that fucking ages-old story last year where he just did that stream about fucking women on their period or whatever the fuck it was, where he got called out by sharks. And something to do with that. So again, I don't. At this point, Bwipo's just fucking waking up to drama. He hasn't even done anything new.
Speaking of, because you mentioned VKS, do you guys see the stuff around VKS too? Because they've had some wild stuff going in the last week with like one of their players saying like slurs.
This way, I'll tell you something I have said 1,000,000 fucking times and no one ever listens. So first of all, I'll just state a fact. I have never, no matter what people tell you, ever done a tweet where I said that a Brazilian player was a monkey. What I did is I did a joke where someone else did a tweet about a monkey and I made it sound like they were saying it about a Brazilian. So that was like a meta contextual. But I get to some people that think it's the same thing. But one thing I think is mental is in League of Legends, League specifically, it has actually very famously been a thing, both in Europe and Korea, for them to say, like, essentially, you are a monkey if you play badly in the game, as in, like, you're just a brainless animal who clicks a button. It's not even supposed to be like a racial stereotype. But the problem is, and I always knew this was going to cause problems, because there's been so many Korean players now have played in CBLOL, the Brazilian league. Unfortunately, Brazilians specifically claim they do have a history with people saying that along like racial lines, specifically the idea you're a monkey. Obviously, people will know with African Americans, for example, that was the thing people also say about slaves when that was the history of in America 300 years ago or whatever. So I will say that's always been one thing I was mildly uncomfortable about, because what happens there is you can imagine a Korean who's speaking second language English and played maybe in a different region. Some of these guys are not going to have any clue there's a cultural context there. They're just going to think I'm just being harmless. Essentially, this is why this topic's so such a difficult one to talk about, because put it this way, where I come from in England, we have no history of having African slaves in England. But when I was a boy, people would do silly things like there is a famous song version of Happy Birthday where it's like, you look like a monkey and you stink like one, two, something like that. But the problem is, if you were to say that in an innocent way to a Brazilian esports player, they will just assume you're actually, unfortunately, racially abusing them. So essentially, there's a Korean player, he's called Miru, who this has happened with. He made a comment on solo queue like monkey or something, and the Brazilian fans took that as like, you're racially abusing this guy. So it kicked up a massive firestorm.
Yeah, I don't know the history and the culture around it, so I'm absolutely not an expert on that. But I think one of the things which was brought up is that Miru had played for a year in CBLOL already. So like, he has been there. And then the question comes about, well, actually, has there been appropriate like PR training and stuff like that? Because there are a lot of Korean players over there. Like, if this is going to be an issue, and absolutely you need to be aware of the culture that you're playing in and the region that you're going into, there needs to be adequate coaching. And if that was provided and then he does it anyway, then that's a completely other thing. We're like, what the fuck, dude? Why are you behaving like that? And yeah, if there are kind of blind spots like that, I think there does need to be some kind of sensitivity training, because you are a representative for the brand which you're on, right? And you have to understand what you're speaking into. And this applies to a bunch of things. You know, what happens if you're going to for what if you're going to play obviously in LATAM? What if you're going to go play in CBLOL or in LJL in the past too? You do need to be aware of the situation that you're going into, because we've seen across some different esports, right? I mean, Liquid lost their Honda sponsorship because of like some guy.
I think it was a Rainbow Six player. Yes,
I remember Six player or something like that making a joke about nukes after losing to a Japanese team, and just think, even well, in that case, it's like oh bloody hell. I mean, it doesn't take much understanding of that to go like, what the heck? But I'm sure there are plenty of cases of things which perhaps they might fly in other just random commentary or comedy for your culture. You just hadn't thought about applying or didn't have the context for that elsewhere. And if you're a team which is investing in players playing in a certain region, you do need to have that sort of conversation.
To bring a bit of levity to this moment, I'll just remind people of what I still think. Like, just stop selling at this point, mate. You've already lost. When the guy made that comment, the Rainbow Six player, which, by the way, it has been speculated by people who know more about the industry, probably cynically, Honda actually wanted their way out of that deal. It was probably a deal they'd already signed that they wished they could cancel. It was just a very good, obvious way to make it so that even team couldn't complain that you removed the sponsorship. But the problem was the guy tried to clear it as an excuse as to why he did it. Like, oh no, I didn't mean it specifically Hiroshima or whatever. I just looked up nukes on Google GIFs. There's only ever been 2 dropped on countries, you fucking moron. That doesn't even work as an excuse. I'm sorry.
And that wasn't the first one on the list either. If you search what you want for, it wasn't even the first one on the list. I could
easily believe a Korean, maybe even one who's had a year in Brazil, maybe they just never ever had that context. I could believe a Korean maybe didn't know that monkey context. I'm sorry. You definitely did know that the only 2 nukes ever that dropped on countries were dropped on Japan. You did. I'm sorry. You definitely did know that. Like, there's certain things maybe we don't know, but I'm pretty sure everyone knows that one. Come on, bro. That wasn't even a good excuse, man. That was a whack excuse. Come on. Come on. Anyway. I think right now, Yamato, you have told me anecdotes in the past about how, since we're talking about LCS, one of the best countries to have factor meals in was when you were in America. Is that not true?
Oh, my days. Bro, Dom treated me. Bro, he fooled me first. He said, I cooked a meal for you. I arrived in Texas.
Okay.
And then I'm eating this steak and beans, and damn, Dom, you know how to cook? And then it said, no, bitch, it's just factor meals. And I was like, damn, fooled me. Absolutely nuts. Factor meals, you know. I thought, am I doing factor meals, Thorin? I'm doing factor meals. Okay, I'm doing factor meals. I love talking about factor meals because I have eaten in America, as Thorin mentioned. I've also eaten them in Sweden. I've eaten them in Germany too. And
touring the world eating factor meals. I
was like, I'm breaking some kind of world record soon, you know. I think the consistency is insanely impressive because obviously you deal with different suppliers, different food, different items. When it comes to food, it's not like they're shipping it from one factory in Antarctica and they have to deal with this. It is insanely consistent. You know, quality, functional ingredients, including lean proteins, colorful veggies, whole food ingredients. There's even options because we know already Thorin doesn't eat the vegetables. He can figure out options that work for him. No refined sugars, no artificial sweeteners, no refined seed oils, meals that fit your goals and schedule, healthier eating, calorie management, and more protein. I think the cool thing is that there's variety. You can easily switch things up. Something gets boring for you. You like something super much. You can, of course, pick and choose which meals that arrive to your door always fresh, never frozen. You keep it in your refrigerator and then ready in about 2 minutes. No prep, no stress. It's extremely, extremely impressive. I mentioned already that you can cater the options to your diet. You can do high protein, you can do calorie smart, you can do a Mediterranean diet, you can do GLP-1 support and ready to eat salads. So what the hell are you waiting for? You know, save time, save your health. These are the two most important aspects of life, you know, eat healthier and saving time. I don't know if you can find a better deal anywhere else. So head to factormeals.com/LFN50 off and use code LFN50 off to get 50% off and free breakfast for a year. Eat like a pro this month with Factor. This applies only to, of course, new subscribers only, varies by plan, 1 free breakfast item per box for 1 year while subscription is active. There you go. Thank you, Factor Meals.
Yes. Right, let's talk about the LPL, because here's the thing. Obviously, I haven't talked about the LPL with you, Marto, for many, many, many months now. And you know what? This is, you might feel like you were away for a while. It was only a couple of months. But actually, the joke is, you were away. Are you ready? This is a new unit I'm going to create. You were away one entire IG hype cycle. Because you know what? In the off season, they had the Demacia Cup, Marto. Rookie didn't even play. They were smurfing. Brilliant. You know what? This top lane is not bad. And hey, you know what? Maybe I can learn to love again, Fortic. I'm willing to open my arms again and welcome you in. Please don't hurt me again like you did so many times in the past. And you know what? In the time it took you to win 5 games out of 11 in the end, whatever. I'm going to keep referencing that. In the time it took you to not make playoffs, they've already ruined it all completely. Like, they won a few bullshit games and gave you false hope. Spoiler, now we're back to pure cynicism. If people don't know, I've always said this. People make the mistake of thinking if I have a favorite player, I must love the team he plays on. Are you out of your mind? That's the team I hate the most, because they're the ones that are imprisoning my fucking favorite player and stopping them from winning. So you know what? I'm back to only being a rookie fan. I'm not even an IG fan. Fuck the Saboro guy. He's just trash in top lane. You aren't the Shy. The Shy could come back tomorrow and I'd welcome him in. Oh, thank you, Alec, the prodigal son or something, mate. Fortic, actually, mate, he is offensive, like, as a photon going into my eye. I wish I was blind when he exists. Like, I wish I actually had a Braille laptop that told me, like, oh, when the team fighting rookie got fucked in it again. Oh, shit, probably that bloody Fortic guy again. He makes me wish I didn't have eyes. A sad day to have eyes when he's playing. Fucking Jue's not bad, but even then he actually has had a little bit of he's still got a little bit worse in the last few weeks, sadly. Way's all right, but he is just still fucking Way. He is just Way. He is still the guy that even fucking BLG was like, you know what? I think we'll just try anyone except you, actually. Like, it's all right, but you are out. So there's no left. And then even rookie, well, at the end, yeah, when the whole team goes to shit, yeah, he lost a few games. All right, whatever. He's really old at this point in time. Give him a break. He hasn't got T1 around him. But the point is, they've already been and gone. So what do you think of IG? There must point in time. Who gives a shit, right?
I don't know. Like, the worst part is, T1 after winning the world championship, like, yo, IG was one of the best.
Why did they have to say that? That was the worst. But that's like, I'm already bleeding out and you just throw some salt in the wound and go, there you go, bitch. Enjoy this thing. Oh, why are you going to do that to me? Because, when they even said it, Yamato, the first thing I realized was, oh, God damn it, they're right. Essentially, aside from KT and anyone's engine, they gave T1 the best game. Like, they actually gave them the third best game in the fucking... Why is that a real thing? Why? Meanwhile, I'm watching VKS and everybody playing fucking the main event, but I have to not see IG. Cheers. Thanks for reminding me of that. Brilliant.
It's just, bro, the off season happened, and I'm like, all right, it's over. The rookie idea is over. This is like a worse version of what KT managed to do in LCK.
Absolutely.
with the they brought back Fortic. Fortic got benched on the team that he was on. Like, he got benched, and where was he? On OMG? He was in some hellhole last year. I don't know what the hell he was, but he got benched for a player that I had never heard of at the time. And at start, I was like, oh, the Master Cup. It's like, oh, it looks interesting. I was like, oh, they're doing this without rookie. It's like, okay, I'm gonna keep it cool. I'm gonna keep it cool. This is a tournament that doesn't matter so much, but at least there's some substance there. And then it started off fine. I'm like, okay. They easing me back into it, but I have to say I never fucking bought into it. This roster on paper, I never allowed myself to get excited because I couldn't go through the pain. I don't allow myself to be vulnerable and love as much as you do, Thorin, when it comes to rookie and IG. I've been too hurt. And you've been hurt too. Well, you keep giving yourself to it, but at this point, you know what's gonna happen in their first round. I just want IG to go out. Just be done. Sure. Be out. Go out. I'm over it. Like just yeah. I'm done.
Thought it was on LNG, and he was really not good. I'm so surprised he had a job, given that how many good ADCs there were this year.
Shit.
And this was like the worst LNG we've ever seen.
And that's also what I can't handle. Look, we've done this to rant already, but I'll do a remix for you. It's not even just that they got Fortic. It's that if you look at who was available, as far as we can tell, they essentially went like, what's this? Get this 1x out my way. What's this, like fucking Gala? You're not even that important. Fucking Elk. You weren't even that good last year. Oh, fuck. I've got a Fortic, guys. So you got like a fucking Furby or something back in the day. Like, hey, look, it's a fucking peak condition Fortic. Oh, yeah, it's V5 Fortic. He's back, lads. Like, any of the other players were way better than him. All of those players. There was a rumor they could have had Diable and Fearx. What even is this? What even is this?
I might actually be able to add...
Fortic. He knows him. He knows him.
Never let players be GMs. We fucking learned this. Never let players build rosters. It just doesn't. Jesus Christ, don't let it happen. May I add one tiny small dose of hope for you both, just to keep it going, keep the engine ticking.
Why is he going to do this to us? Come on.
I got to because there's that slight. It's not for this split, not for this playoffs. That's fucking dead and buried. But for next split, because the only reason I think IG are even in playoffs and even in Group Ascend next split is because the weirdest series of upsets happened, and it gives that slight glimpse of hope. EDG were meant to butcher OMG. They fucking lost 1-3 to OMG, a team which took 7 months off between LPL series because they went out of Split 2 last year. And because that happened, it meant that OMG were the lowest remaining seed, and it meant that IG played them as the highest remaining seed, meaning that IG had the easy matchup. They blasted them 3-0, got through into playoffs. This left LNG against WE, and LNG bombed out. And what did we say? If LNG don't make playoffs, there's a certain AD carries back on the menu. Perhaps for next split. Roster changes come through. You look at that top lane thing. Maybe Mako comes back as well for support. Maybe the Shy comes back. And maybe you fix the wrongs of the offseason and you get 1xN in, who is by far the best part of that team of LNG. You know, like that guy is just completely smurfing on all the bottom AD carries. Now, look, again, this playoffs is complete wash. Then they're going to do nothing and they're going to bomb out. They're going to be just completely awful in this playoffs. But I think legitimately going into Split 2, if IG pick up the available members between splits, especially now that the auction for LPL players is not going to affect things between Split 1 and Split 2, it only affects the start of year off season. I genuinely think IG could put together a really powerful roster going into next Split, and that gives me a tiny bit of hope for them. Just a tiny bit.
Oh, God damn it, I'm back in. I'm fully back in again. Look, he's going to be the MVP. MSI, we're going all the way again. We're back.
Bro, it was the auction system that fucked them up. It was a clever financial
Exactly, it's not IG's fault. It's not Rookie's fault.
Oh, Jackie Love, IG Jackie Love, maybe.
Yeah, Jackie Love could be back too. Maybe you get Jachi if he's available, and Jackie Love goes on to top esports. The pieces are there. Legitimately,
and it was even, if people remember, it was even the top esports where they had Rookie and Jackie Love, where Jackie Love became actually fucking insane. That was when he started to peak again and had like some amazing performances. Yeah, I'd roll. Listen, I'm totally fine getting tricked by Jackie Love every year. Oh, easy, mate. Come back. Romance me, wine and dine me domestically. Win a championship, an MVP here and there. You know, a song from a balcony, a fucking bouquet of red roses, great dancing. It always comes tonight. Then turn up to the fucking international event, hungover, joint hanging out your mouth. All right, bitch, what are you up to? And all of a sudden he's treating me mean. Like, fair enough, okay. But at that point, I'm back in. I love you at that point. I'm willing to do anything for a relationship. Yeah, I know you're going to fucking actually wreck my ass when T1 plays you. But you know what? I'm ready for that pain. I understand you, Matt. With every rose comes the thorns. That's what Jackie Love is, a beautiful Chinese rose.
Big ass thorns.
The thorns are crazy, I know. They thought, please, Mr. Faker. My blood just coming out of my hand. This rose is killing me.
There was that one beautiful best of one in World's 24 groups where Jackie Love didn't have to use Flash for the entirety of the game on Jin, completely butchered them. Never saw that again. Never.
Luckily, I didn't completely buy into and believe that they'd win again. Oh, I did. I did that every single playoffs of every single Worlds ever. Yes, I did, indeed. In fact, I'm even the guy who goes, I love it when you T1 stands bet on T1, because now look at my odds for top esports. I have 4-1 odds, and then I bet on them like, watch the whole game. It's like, this is dark. They're not even winning one of these games. Like, it's so fucking shit, innit? And the way it ends at the end, it's like, mate, even in professional wrestling where it is fake, they make it look better than this. Like, make it look believable or something. Like, by it gets to like game 4, you couldn't even believe they just like disconnect their laptops or something. Like, oh, fucking the keyboard. Like, I'm out. So yeah, I'm off already. Like, it's just garbage in it. It's total garbage.
Yeah, it's really
Total
bad
garbage.
when you see a player like Jackalope get to that world semis and you've actually just already mentally checked out before the game's gone in there. Just think, we've seen this before. Surely it can't be that bad, and it somehow was worse than expectations.
Except here's what
I've got in me for that.
In fact, I'll tell you how much I despise Jackalope teams internationally. I can even tell you, I know what would have happened if somehow anyone's legend had pulled off Game 5 against T1. TES would have beaten anyone's legend just because why the fuck not at that point in time, and then lost in the final, and like fucking Peter from KT would be a world champion right now. So there's no upside. But it's not at the end Jackalopes win worlds at my like. It would have just been Peter and Perfect like, hey, oh, what's that, Flame? You aren't a world champion? Not like me, mate. See ya. Like, fuck you. Get on my face. You make me sick. Smeb never won, but you did, you rat. Whatever. He never won. Still salty about that. Still salty about Smeb not winning literally 10 years ago.
Khan just rolling in his grave somewhere.
Never going to get over that one. Never getting over that one. Speaking of which, though, I would take Smeb and Khan today over Saboro, though. I'll bring that back. I don't care if they played League, mate. Just rock up. Can you put on a pair of trainers? Come on, come down to the office. You can play, mate. That guy just sucks. He just sucks. I'm not even hating I am, but I'm not hating invalidly. He isn't very good at League of Legends, unfortunately. And you know what? Spoiler, there's some pretty good top laners in the LPL. By the way, even the ones without the big names, like, you know what? People like the Xiaoju guy eat this guy's fucking lunch. Like, there's some pretty legit players in the LPL at top lane.
I mean, you can even look at someone. I mean, yeah, there's a bunch of people just hanging around teams where I think they've just got. Sobro might actually genuinely thinking about it. He might be worst top laner in the LPL. It's quite hard to tell because he's only playing against Ascend top laners, really. Then he got his head kicked in by Hoya, but then Hoya weirdly has turned on to like being a lane dominant player this split. He never was in his career, really. I suppose Harry was pretty awful in their series too, but he's definitely amongst like the bottom 4 top laners in the league. And you think a team like IG would just somehow, I mean, I cannot stress, by the way, folks, how insanely important it is that IG did make it through into playoffs and did make it into Ascend, because if they had lost to, well, if they'd ended up playing LNG and losing that series, or if they'd ended up playing, you know, whatever teams came through the bracket, it would have been disaster, and I think they would have lost. They were really playing quite poorly to the point where I think they would have lost versus any other team in the bracket that should have made it through on form. By winning that series versus OMG after OMG had the upset to give them the better seed effectively, they won't be playing in Group Nirvana next split because it's going into a 2-group system, not a 3-group system. But it basically means that you would have had a whole split playing against worse tier opposition. You'd have a harder road to playoffs. You would have worse practice, and it would be stunting your development. Now at least it opens up the opportunity for them to at least exist. And even though they're not a good team right now, the pieces available should make them into a team which is at least a threat going for further forward in the year.
By the way, Yamato, obviously now we had the game where anyone's legend beat BLG, etc. But those were the 2 teams in the split that everyone was, which team do you think's better? BLG maybe early. Anyone's legend now's had the results. Is anyone's legend your best team? Do you think they're the best LPL team?
I feel like they currently, in terms of the form they've shown, I would say yes. It's hard for me to give up on Bilibili just yet. I feel like they are gonna bullshit the way through playoffs. And I just think that I expect that the pieces should fall into place and that they should be relevant. Like, I've seen Bilibili play out those type of playoffs in the past, and maybe it is because like when the offseason happened, and especially now where the meta has landed, I am still holding on. It's, I feel like LPL, we're just holding on to ideas that never happen. It's like I'm holding on to the idea of Bin returning to the conversation, because after the World Finals that he played against Zeus, I was like, oh, these 2 guys are racing to be just simply the GOATs of their position. And I feel like this meta is so good for both of them, and somehow the performances have been like lackluster. I feel like this now, you play isolated 1v1, your laning skills should be so damn important. And there's been many moments in time where a player like Bin, a player like On, just kicks it into gear as things proceed. So I'm still cautiously thinking that Billy looks like my favorite to win just because of roster strength. But I agree with the notion that what AL has shown so far, they look the best with what they've shown so far.
By the way, one thing as well, I have to ask you this quickly, and then we'll all just jump in. The other thing as well about BLG that means I can't totally get. Listen, I would take anyone's Legend because they kept the same roster, they kept most of the same strengths. They're also just a very good team all around in the game. But the problem I have with the BLG one is I have to believe eventually Viper's going to play like he used to back in Korea, for fuck's sake. Like, he's also been a little bit lackluster actually in this BLG squad. And I feel like on paper, the roster still looks like it could be amazing for BLG. Like, I agree, it could still kick in the gear.
It's just like the distance looks far, but the pedigree of these players is just ridiculous. Like, that's why we got excited with this roster. But I do think from the AL side, and in terms of how important, how your team rallies around jungle, like we talked about Inspired before, what FlyQuest did well is that they rallied around him. They did everything to make sure that Inspired's vision was enacted. That's not happening on Lion. And the difference now is like that I make this comparison because on AL, Tarzan's vision is enacted. Like Kale and Tarzan playing together has become so much more valuable now. Absolutely. And Tarzan has the champion pool depth, and I do think that this team is insanely fucking good in terms of how they coordinate with jungle. It's like every game that I watch with Thorin, I'm just so impressed with his decision making. Like he basically is it's funny how like in the West we have like our smaller versions of players, but he is what we said about Inspired in the West last year is what Thorin is for the entire world. And yes. I think that he's maintained that, and he's looking absolutely insane. It's like just watching his games. There was like a couple of teams that I handpicked to just draw inspiration from, and how Tarzan jungled was on top of the list to of course incorporate and help our team with examples. AL was a big one for sure.
Yeah, I will say I think that some of his first clear has been a bit exploitable. In fact, when we saw them lose against JDG the first time when they've dropped games, a lot of the time it has been Tarzan getting exploited on first clear because AL's not been great at defending his camps, or they've gone for if there's one really big flaw which anyone's Legend had, and they had this last year, they have it here as well, is that they always go for a super ambitious early game fight around scuttle crabs or grubs if they can take it. You can almost always counter them taking a fight somewhere between 5 to 10 minutes, and it just kind of like explodes one way or the other. We saw this a lot in various series internationally, and you can, if you have the right angle and you make sure your HP bars are high enough, you can sometimes get into those plays. And a lot of the time that is because, Tarzan really wants to get that one play. He really wants to get that one scuttle crab or one camp steal as well. It does make him such an entertaining player to watch, and I think it does allow anyone's Legend some just insane snowball potential. But it hasn't been the cleanest so far. So that's why we've seen occasionally, despite the fact that I don't think GenG has been very good for JDG, his first 10 minutes of the game have been, and that's meant that JDG can sometimes defang Tarzan and get ahead of the game, and then they can play through very solid laning phase and then just group up in towards team fights where at least they can contest anyone's Legend with a lead like that. But yeah, as it comes through to the LPL as a whole, anyone's Legends still are, I think, favorites. I don't think there's a way to view anything else. JDG have fallen apart through everything outside of that early game. I think that BLG look fantastic on side lanes. I think that particularly Shun when he's on Pantheon and you have like Shun and Knight playing off of each other, they look so good when they're playing on the side of the map, but they can't play in 5v5s. So anyone's Legend across the average of everything end up being just pound for pound best team on average, and a lot of that does come through Tarzan and Kyle once they get out of the first like 5 to 10 minutes of the game.
By the way, I actually do think... Oh, go on.
No, I just wanted to say I'm really intrigued because, like, obviously I was very busy, but I'm intrigued about how you guys have framed the whole Billy thing. Because for me, it's just a continuation of like chasing a solution in changing the jungler and hoping just things solve themselves, and then it's like it's the continuation of like this aura of being uncoachable and unhelpable.
I know what you mean. I'll say it this way. Here's the basic version of it. The one thing, even when I saw this roster at the beginning, it looked great, that I immediately thought to myself was, Where's the shot caller? Like, aren't you just basically relying on the idea we're all just going to play like a solo queue game? You're going to play great in top lane, jungle, mid, and at the end, we're just going to team fight and win. And essentially, the framing Nymaera makes, I think it's very valid though, is that's why also they're not the best team, because actually anyone Legend even has a better team fight than them at the moment. So, whereas if you're BLG, and by the way, a lot of Knight teams, historically, yeah, you can just essentially go, look, if I've got Knight in a shit hot ADC, especially if they're fucking Korean, why not just 5v5 team fight? Well, let's just do that and I'll win the game that way, which is a classic Chinese way to play. The problem at the moment is you get outbrained by anyone's Legend and you'll get out team fought by them. So yeah, that's why unfortunately you kind of stuck in the second spot, which is still good. But when I looked at this roster on paper, this is why I do think in the modern day that's the one thing maybe Faker fans don't overrate. It is really OP to have an excellent fucking shot caller, because that's the biggest problem of all, is when you're playing a game that isn't just a linear normal 5v5 front to back team fight, there's a lot of fucking key decisions that if you don't have some guy who's dialed in or has the voice to do, that's one thing I look at this squad and I'm like, you have a lot of really good players. And by the way, everyone's hands on paper should be bonkers in this team, but are you actually going to be the team that's going to like outmaneuver the opponent or move around the objectives? I don't know if you are actually. They've been a little bit underwhelming in that sense.
Yeah, I think for me, you know, I have still been impressed with how they play around side lanes, which does take a significant amount of shot calling. You got to make sure that, you know, you have the actual playmaking tools in place, that your waves are in the right position. You're going to get there first. They are the best side laning team in the LPL. It's just that everything comes down to they're just not good at 5v5s anymore for me. And I don't know who's calling that. Why hasn't the setup been improved? Because now for several years, they've had this same flaw of not being able to control vision around an objective. And they try a similar thing to T1, where T1 inherently take a risky style where they would prefer to retake an objective and have a creative flank than sit on the objective itself and then just bleed you out of it like a GenG does. And there's some great upsides to that, particularly in certain metas when very big playmakers are available for support, mid lane, whatever. You can have just incredible ability to come out of Fog War and instantly win a fight. BLG used to play like that. And now it feels like that they're somewhat trying to do that, but then they just aren't good enough playmakers in teamfights anymore. So weirdly for me, the macro's not been as big of an issue comparative to I don't think they know how to choose angles in a teamfight anymore, which is another kind of shot calling. I do agree with that to a certain degree, but I just haven't seen them put together a clean 5v5 from like even or behind, which is the real test of your team fighting information. Actually, if you're a good team fighter, you'll be able to do that from behind the game and clutch it out. And I don't think I've seen BLG win a team fight from behind this entire split.
And then obviously, here's what's funny. I think actually the spiciest team in the LPL is JDG. Because, bro, this is like essentially top esports is somewhat irrelevant now. They don't even have Jackie Love, they just have the solo, right? They're playing the new top esports role, which is like we could fuck around and beat, in theory, any team. We have the players to do it. Maybe will it, but also this is another team where you can't trust them, though. That's the problem. You can't trust them to beat any of those teams. Also, I would actually genuinely be scared to see this team go international. I also feel like they could be top esports in that regard, too, even though I like some of the moves. So, Yamato, what do you think of JDG?
I think in terms of like I always appreciate the team that like exerts control over a game. And like I don't know, like I have to admit I haven't watched every single game of those. Like during the split, I didn't watch like LPL as religiously as I will and as I always have due to time constraints. But I did feel like that they were in positions where the game was at their mercy, and I did think that in the beginning, my impression, because it was like this whole Malphite obsession, I did feel like everyone was kind of following how JDG were drafting. And then in terms of how the meta shifted, I did remember seeing games where I was like just very confused with the direction that they went. In my mind, I do think this is a team. It's weird because like the way Tabe always works is in segments. It's like he builds up the team from the beginning up, and I feel like they haven't made it all the way to the end. You know, it's like the first part is there, and then they need to just add pieces over time, because I do think the roster on paper is very intriguing. They have the talent pool there. It just I appreciate the team that of course takes charge of the game. I think you never want to be in the position where you're under the gun. It's like the same reason I think Vitality is interesting, because they throw their games. It's like, are you sitting there in game when you are in a disadvantageous position and you're like, all right, guys, Vitality is gonna throw, and then what happens if they don't? And it's like, oh shit, they are just good. So it's like I think the distance. I can see the Tabe vision with what I've seen from JDG at least.
I mean, it's only gotten worse from the splits gone on, which is the worry for me. Because they started very strong. I mean, they came out of the Demacia Cup finals, and I think initially their drafts looked pretty good to me because there was this evolution over Demacia Cup, and I agree that they have gotten worse and they've had issues with that. So like this will build up into it. Demacia Cup kind of started with post Worlds looking at the best carries being like Syndra, Yunara for mid lane, bot lane, really, and then we kind of had a bit of an evolution across Demacia Cup of having the Orianna and the Yunara were kind of best. And then the Syndra came out to counter the Orianna, and we had like a Felios coming out to try and deal with Yunara as well. So we had basically a core of 4-ish champions, which 3 of them really have no way to deal with a Malphite ult. I mean, you build Zhonya's eventually, but even then that doesn't save you from everything. So it was a very immobile carry meta. Even with stuff like Sivir, when you're in jungle, you can kind of do the smite kind of mind game. Varus as well really hates that kind of champion. So Malphite fits into a draft pretty well, particularly when the other opposing junglers are like Jarvan, Jace, and even stuff like Kiana was around too, Ambessa, none of which love Malphite, especially with Malphite's early damage being pretty good for a couple of patches. I think they nerfed Malphite. I can't remember the exact patch on it. So that felt okay as in terms of that felt like you were one-upping the meta as long as Sylas wasn't around, because Sylas is then the next step beyond that, because you steal the Malphite ultimate and the game is just unplayable beyond that point. And I think you're right in terms of the segmented thing for Tabe, where he kind of found out that part of the meta, or the team did, and then they didn't give a second piece of engage. And then that meant that it was just Malphite going on to immobile carries who'd all built Zhonya's, and at that point, actually, the Zhonya's does completely invalidate your kit, because at that point, what the hell do? You just Zhonya's the one bit of engage they have, and things just kind of fall apart beyond that point. So it felt like GenG, in particular, when he was on the Malphite, lost his ability to teamfight effectively because he felt his role was too hard. His early game, his first 10 minutes looked really good, and then the team fights after that point just got worse and worse and worse. And I think the core of my problem for JDG comes from what happens when the engage combo is not doing well, because I don't think they're a very good side lane team. And I think we saw that against BLG. They were losing heavily through side lanes, but they did win very well through 5v5s. When their engage core was actually doing very well, I think that their laners are very strong on the whole compared to a lot of the other, like, you know, mid-table going upwards teams in the LPL. I think they have lanes that can contest with the best in the LPL. But what we saw is effectively when GenG didn't find it easy to engage, that left Vampire alone to engage. And Vampire, I think he has a lot of potential. I think he's definitely top 5 support in the LPL. But what we've seen is he's not good enough at vision control and macro, so you're really picking him for heavy engage, bot lane laning plays, and then going into team fights. But if GenG starts struggling, Vampire is not good enough alone to make the big engages, and then he starts to crumble. Vampire is not a player which does very well when the game plan falls apart. We saw this in Team WE before, so this is recent history for him as well, where if he's on Alistair, Nautilus, if he's the one that has to make the big engage, but it's difficult to do so, he doesn't find a way to problem solve it very well. So we've basically had both jungle and support both have their own issues when plan A goes wrong, partly because of those drafts that you're mentioning too. There was a particular game where GenG had a Nocturne game where he was just absolute ass, and then Vampire and the Nautilus couldn't find a way to find the big engages when GenG was also failing. So that kind of, it basically meant that this kind of flowchart of failing started to happen along the chain, and I would have thought in another world that Hongq and Gala would have been good enough to maybe carry them even then, but that's not proved to be consistently true. So while I still think that JDG has a lot to show, there were also some rumors that GenG might get replaced in jungle, and things we'd have to reevaluate from there. They definitely have the pieces. I think every single player in here does have good potential, even, you know, when I criticize XYZ player for different areas of the game. Tabe should be able to mold this into a team. But it does bring about one thing about JDG, which I'm quite interested, Jack. JDG has basically never had success without Hom as their coach. Doesn't matter who they brought in. They've had something like 7 head coaches in 2 years, something like that. Ridiculous amount, including world champion coaches, including very well-regarded ones. And none of them have made it work besides Hom, really. And I'm really worried that Tabe is also going to fall through to this, where just whatever framework they have set up at the organization there just doesn't work for other coaches, because JDG, they have gotten worse as the split's gone on, and that's starting to really worry me on the coaching side of things.
The joke being when he said whether it's player XYZ, that even could be the name of an LPL player. That's all. Yeah, which team is he playing for? What's that, like OMG or something? Like, give me a fucking break. Anyway, no, but here's the other thing as well. I have one last topic actually on the LPL. So if we go big picture for a second, first of all, I think one of the best details about Anyone's Legend being the best again is, I'm sorry, Tarzan still just runs the fucking LPL, mate. He's just fucking stood. Like, he might say he's a contender for best player in the world in League of Legends again this year, right? I would personally give him my MVP, right? The obvious question I have about Anyone's Legend Legend now is this. Last year, they did tease us. Like at MSI, they were really good. The Worlds, they absolutely gave T1 a fucking great series. There's a world where they could have won that one, and that was the team that ended up winning Worlds. If this Anyone's Legend goes internationally, obviously we expect to see them at first stand and potentially all the events this year. Can Anyone's Legend, this roster, win Worlds?
With the meta as it is right now, no. Because laning has gotten more important, and their bot lane and top lane laning phases are not good enough. Flandre, so I did do an all-pro LPL list, and I put Flandre as my first pro top laner. That's not because he has a laning phase. He doesn't have a laning phase. He's really not great at that point. If Flandre had a laning phase, he'd be the best top laner in the world, I think. He's really good at teamfight impact. He just doesn't know. He's really struggling outside of like Sion matchups to keep things stable. And you come up against Doran on current form, Keen on current form, even, you know, some of the other top laners from LCK who look a little bit better right now. I think that becomes a game losing advantage. And I think that Hope is looking decent domestically, but he always looks worse internationally. And I think you go up against some of the best bot lanes from the LCK, and suddenly you don't get to have any pressure on bot lane, and Kyle, one of your most important pieces, is locked into lane. So I think as it stands right now, because of the nature of role quests, the importance of laning, I think that Anyone's Legend are not going to be very happy compared to the other LPL teams which are more laning focused.
Yes, it's like you kind of want to merge some LPL teams together, because I do think AO's biggest strength has always been that I think they're the most Korean team out of all the LPL teams in terms of how scrappy the LPL teams always have been. Like I remember like last year's playoffs, even like they lost to Top Esports, but Top Esports just kind of come down to being able to take any fight regardless of condition and to put pressure at any point in the game and kind of get away with it. But if you are doing that against teams that are very aware of your timers, your inefficiencies catch up to you so damn fast. And those inefficiencies, like AL as the LPL team against the LCK teams, they don't have those same inefficiencies. They play a very standard game in terms of how they progress and how they play and how they stack dragons, which makes their floor so much higher, I think, than the other LPL teams. But the issue is their skill set are skills that teams can catch up on. So there's always going to be teams, regardless of if the favorite doesn't perform or if someone else performs, that there's going to be enough teams with players with higher individual power that is going to catch up to what their skill set is, in my mind. And I think that makes it hard for me to imagine them winning Worlds, because I think just in certain contexts, Hope and like Flandre as well, or even Shanks. Like Shanks maybe is the guy that has shown the most in terms of what he can do in some circumstances, but just the lack of firepower against some names is going to be very tough to overcome, because if T1 might not have like the macro down, a different team will, and then the individual skill set is going to shine through. And that's why a part of me still thinks that Bilibili, if things fall into place, that they should be better over time, but maybe Bilibili is just uncoachable, unsociable, and they've just all turned into divas in my mind. so AO have that floor that is insanely high, but their ceiling is going to be lower and tighter because of some of the individual ceilings.
I'm with you guys. Sadly, the lack of like a star top laner / ADC in any world meta is what does worry me. It's even, that is what I blamed the series on last year. You had Hope in a position where any world-class AD carry would potentially carry that game, and he wasn't the right dude for it, mate. He showed he wasn't a Viper, a fucking superstar carry. He just wasn't, I'm afraid. And so I do worry a little bit about that. I do still think what makes it compelling, though, is you do still have the Tarzan kill, like contenders for best jungle support duo in the world. Like they can mix it up against anyone. That'll make the matches exciting. With that said, I probably would still tip it over. That's why here's the thing. You got to get up not only early, but you got to use the right style if you want to trick me early in the year. Listen, if you'd given me BLG as the #1 team right now and Viper was smurfing and they were winning every team fight, I'd do what I do every year. I'd trick myself into thinking, a bit like those NA fans with LCS where you haven't seen the regions play. I'd watch the LPL and go, fucking hell, this top team, the shit. You know what? That Korean team who just lost a game, they could probably lose them. There's only GenG would beat them. And then I'd convince myself they're going to be second best. And then it's only when T1 go international I'd realise that was all nonsense, and then they just beat them anyway. And then I'd go, brilliant. What's this like? Me and Dom in purgatory every world. It's cool. It's another world. It's Faker won again. Fuck it. Let him win 700 in a row. Yeah, why not? Fuck us, right? What are we even doing for the rest of the year? Brilliant. What year is it? Oh, it's Faker won Worlds again. That's the joke is, if you came out of a time machine and someone went, Faker just won Worlds, you'd go, you haven't given me any information that can even tell me what decade I'm in. That doesn't even fucking help at all. No, he's won it again, though. Yeah, that doesn't help either. He's won it back to back. That also doesn't help. Which year is it? What fucking year is it, please? But anyway, enough about me, PTSD, actually retreating into my own safe space. Every world, I have to escape from the world. That's enough for the LPL right now, because don't worry, we'll have loads. Also, there's no play this week if people don't know, because they had the break, didn't they? So when we come back on the next episode without Nymaera, we'll go super deep on the LPL again. With that said, now is also the time I'd like to shout out our last sponsor of the show, which is going to be Shopify. Now, one thing that makes the shopping experience really annoying, so if you're going to have your own online e-commerce store, you need to know about this, is, you know, when you go to a website that's one you don't use commonly, and you go there, you see the item that you want, it has a normal setup, you click it and put it in the cart, and then you go there, and obviously, if you want to do all proper tracking and stuff, you need to log in, or if you had to log in, you have to remember your password, and it's like, oh, have I ever used this site before? Maybe I used it once. Who the fuck wants to go and reset like one of the best things about Shopify, because they've got a million different people who sell on there, is if you use Shopify and if people have used it in the past, there's just a big fucking purple button that's like pay. You click it, has all your info saved, and you're immediately out and you're buying the item. So it's also why Shopify, if you make your own store there, is really easy. First of all, they've got everything covered anyway. They do all the SEO for you. They help you figure out like email campaigns. They can use AI to write product descriptions. They have all beautiful templates that don't just look like some shit from 2003. They look really modern and slick and great design, and there's no bugs, etc. Also, look that millions and millions of people use the website anyway. There've been loads of massive brands, small brands, boutique brands, every scale you could want. They're also brilliant to scale with. As you scale up, they can help you sell in other markets and any amount of volume that you want, etc. Basically, it just makes it very, very easy to get a side hustle, a little business going, or even to pivot in your career and do something else and sell a service or some sort of an item. So you can go to the site that doesn't have the abandoned carts on it, which is obviously cha-ching, Shopify, isn't it? And use their shop pay button that I just referenced. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/summoning. Go to shopify.com/summoning. That's shopify.com/summoning. Cha-ching. Right, okay. I think we do a little break now and then do some Q&A to end the episode. All good, boys?
Sounds good.
Right, we'll be back after this short break. Okay, today will be, I would say, the final question and answer for Nymaera, but who knows? Who knows what the future can hold? We'd never say never, right? But we will do one last one now, which also means it is the last chance for him to answer the questions he was trying to like come back to on the exam later of like, what's your top 5 thing? Oh, I'd have to need more. Well, you got no time left. You better have it all today or hold your peace forever. Anyway.
Thorin challenges you, right? Nymaera, like, this guy is a memory bank. Sometimes I suspect Thorin like pre-reads the questions and preps shit, you know?
Nah,
he's a wizard.
I don't.
You're sitting there, it's like, oh.
You'll have to trust me, but yes, one thing Yamato had to learn the hard way was, Alf and I have to go first, don't I? Because when they do that thing, fans don't realise how hard actually a question like this is. Like, who do you think was like the most underrated player ever in the 15 years of the game? It's like, you know, your brain doesn't just go like, well, access supercomputer mode, LLM, searching, tracker. Like, you have to do that basically live on the spot while talking. Because maybe you can't just go, give me 5 minutes, will you? Shut up. I'm trying to think. Like, you can't do that, can you? It's fucking dead air. So it is hard. What a lot of people think it's easy now, but as Yamato himself found out, it's tricky. Yeah. Especially the ones where it's like, tell me an anecdote from any time in your life. Like, those aren't that easy to pull, man. Those are tricky.
If it's in one of my specific hyperfixations, that's right on the top of my head. But at that point, it's about, you know, really hitting those sweet spots. But it's a real muscle you got to train, for sure.
Exactly. Listen, even though it'll sound like a joke, an actual skill on any live show is just being able to talk. No, actually, you can't. You can't just say random words and make them make a coherent sense and be entertaining and hopefully address something while also buying time for yourself to actually think of an answer. Like, that is a skill. Anyway, luckily, I've just done it with a billion reps on this show, haven't I? So I'm still even here. Where's Monty? He's off with his fucking kids, loser, whatever. Doesn't have the love of the game, does he? I'll still be here, whether I have kids or not. For all you know, I have millions of kids. Maybe I'm just a deadbeat dad, but I still do summoning insight. At least I'm loyal to one thing about life, summoning insight. Exactly.
Set yourself up to be like the esports Genghis Khan.
Listen, if that would make me esports, though, wouldn't it? I am esports. I'm just. It turns out in 100 years, 1 in 5 people in esports is genetically related to me.
Oh, okay.
My esports seed lives on. Anyway, if you want to ask a question, like maybe what historical world tyrant would I be in esports, you can ask it by subscribing to the Last Free Nation Discord, and there's a channel, SI Questions. Put your question in there, innit? So I will now read from that channel. First question is as follows. There's going to be a Yamato one, I guess. I can answer it a little bit, but I want to know what Yamato will say, because obviously is in his wheelhouse. Spoken says, how would you describe Sweden's influence and participation in esports history? So from a Swede, what would you say it is?
Like from my experience, right? Like growing up in Sweden, I do think like the Counter-Strike early CS days, like 1.6, even earlier than that, like and just the influence of DreamHack. I do think the DreamHack as an image and as an idea actually made something so surreal real. Like that was like a dream. It's like you bring your PC and you're just like there with like-minded individuals. I do think that made a massive like impact, at least from my perspective, in terms of what could be done. I think like in terms of like early days Inferno Online, and like when like I was watching like Spawn, Heaton, these guys play CS. Like there was at least for me as someone that grew up with games, that had like a massive influence on what I could imagine to become in the games that I played. And I do think having role models to look up to regionally is something that is insanely important. You even saw early, like especially in that era, because obviously it's like you had to go onto niche forums or whatever to like understand like a bigger picture. Everything was very local and ideas spread, and now it's a lot easier to like connect to the zeitgeist. So it's a lot easier to be like, I'm a T1 fan, because that's just accessible. Like everything is at the same level of access, when in the past it was like, this is Swedish, you go on Fragbite, this is what you see in your face, and this is what you know. And at least in that influence, I can imagine, just because I saw these guys compete at the highest level, that influence spreads into other things too. I think CS is the big one. We've had like, you know, your homie with Nymaera, right? Like Nymaera and StarCraft. We had Leffen. You know, it's like, considering how small we are as a country, we've managed to do some good things in esports, I think. So like I think Swedish influence is for real. I think the DreamHack image though is a really big one, because like that to me was the OG version of like a big LAN, a big fucking event.
Yeah, the thing that might actually shock people, but I realize this is why it's a good question, is in the modern day, Sweden's just another country in esports. Even in Counter-Strike, people would be like, so what? They might not realize, literally, if you go back to the early 2000s, in both Quake and Counter-Strike, Sweden was the best country by the way, per capita in the world. Like, in terms of number of citizens versus the number of top players. Also, if you were talking about European Counter-Strike, the joke was you used to literally have world championships in Counter-Strike where like 3 Swedish teams were in the top 4 teams in the tournament. Like, it was insane how dominant they were. And here's the thing, it never was just the internet, because spoiler, Norway had the same internet. Like, Finland had very good internet early on. Like, maybe some of these other ones like had other circumstances, but no one hit the sweet spot like Sweden did. And then also, what's interesting is even like the style of play, Swedes actually have never been, it's bizarre. People understand why Koreans are so good, because they have this crazy work ethic. Swedes were never even that sort of player. They were a bit like DreamHack. They were more of like the hippie vibe. It's why it was all called like scene kids and shit back then. If anything, Swedish players in most games I've ever watched are pretty much the profile of like very skilled, but play like quite an intuitive style of play. And it's funny because actually in League, the country in Europe was obviously Denmark, wasn't it? All the mid laners, etc. But in Counter-Strike, it was absolutely Sweden. Sweden was the shit for a solid, most of 1.6, they were the greatest players and the greatest teams ever. No country had as many. In CSGO, they were more early on with Fnatic. The joke is even in CS eventually became Denmark, didn't it? Because of Astralis and systems-based approach. People don't know, in European esports, Denmark has the reputation that like Germany does in football, where it's all about the team system and structure, and you learn through the levels of play, and that's why actually you a factory to produce great structured teams. Whereas in this analogy, I don't know, I guess you would say Sweden would have been more like something like, I don't know, fucking Spain or something, where everyone's got brilliant flair and it's how they play off each other and the line intuitively plays, etc. Also, there was a period in time where they actually, if people don't know, did have a massive material advantage over the rest of the world, including Europe, which is they were one of the first places to actually put in fiber optic connections in the 90s. Never mind, like when you come in now and you can get it all. So they also had it where any student basically, or anyone who lived in a really residential area like Stockholm, could just very easily access reasonably cheap, fast DSL/cable internet, which you just didn't have elsewhere. So sadly, a lot of this is now like a history lesson. It's not as relevant, and obviously in Leeds, barely relevant at all. I mean, you've only had Reckless, a little bit of Larson, and like the odd player like Memento or something like. So you haven't really had that.
The Baus, of course.
A trash ass player will never be in LEC again in his life. So definitely not. Not talking about streamers.
Hey, yo,
mate.
come on,
listen. Yeah.
About to fucking well, bro. All things considered.
Yeah,
bro.
he's all right.
Perfect.
He's just high.
All
He's
things
just high.
considered, bro.
He's high. He's just high.
It's impressive. No, Thorin, at least say it's impressive his level, right?
Yeah, he was all right.
He was doing well.
But anyway, I didn't think
That'll
he
be
was
your
an
goal
LEC
for this
player.
year, Yamato. That'll be
I
your
didn't
goal.
think he was an LEC player, so I think he was all right. With that said, I think if I got to draft for fucking G2 and MCOY, you would never have had some of those games. So that's all I'm saying. I do think they also, I think they actually also had a very cynical opinion of him, like I did, Yamato, and maybe drafted a bit greedily or abusively into him, if you know what I mean.
I had
Anyway,
to draft
that's
jiu-jitsu, bro. I had to draft jiu-jitsu, but yeah, let's carry on with the
Yeah,
questions.
of course. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, that's it. That's it for the Swedish one. Let's do another one. Let's see. Right, XX Sweet Breeze XX. He has an old school AOL instant messenger type name there. Says, do you guys have a favorite or standout? It can be either an esports or a sports jersey of all time. Is there a jersey that you think is just mega? Is there a favorite that you have?
Let's see.
Go ahead. Some of the FlyQuest ones where they had it themed around like certain like natural initiatives were really, really cool. I find it a little bit annoying when esports jerseys conform all the time to sports jerseys, to have them, because at the end of the day, you don't need them to be like active wear all the time. You need to be, comfortable and not restrictive. But I think some of the FlyQuest ones, where they had like some of the Sakura ones, some of the Sequest one as well, they were really stand out to me.
Yeah, what do you matter?
On my side, it's a cursed one because it's the 2021 Fnatic Worlds one. I thought that had like a very cold look. It was like, I don't know, looked like galactic military blue dark. That one had a very, very cool design to it. But for me, the ones that I like the most, it's like kind of like that Seinfeld episode, when he gave, like we had George. He was the GM, not the GM. He was some position.
Assistant to the GM, traveling GM.
To the GM, right?
Something like that. Yeah, something like that.
And my man gave all the players cotton jerseys, because it's more breathable.
Yeah.
I think like the whole sports jersey thing. I do think that there is more to be done in terms of what you can cook. So definitely shout out to George. He had a good idea, but maybe wrong sports.
I'll give you two. I'll give you a sports and an esports one. So the one I'm going to do for sports, you can look up almost any era of this. It's basically the classic 90s and 2000s San Jose Sharks NHL jersey. Because first of all, I think that had the best logo. The one with the shark like snapping a hockey stick. And it's also just a mega color scheme. It just looks really cool. It actually looks like some anime fucking manga shit, doesn't it? It looks dope. And then I'll tell you the one to Google if you want to see the esports one. Even though I will totally acknowledge this looks really gaudy. It's a mad out there one. If you go to Google Images and type in FaZe 2016 CSGO, you will see this one they had where it was a red with like a clashing like navy blue, which it looks mad gaudy, but I think it looks baller. I actually think that was a really cool design for a shirt. So in general, I agree, by the way. I actually think one of the most underutilized things is the fucking jerseys, because all we've done is just make shitty football jerseys, basically. But meanwhile, especially when you consider, by the way, I don't know if people know this, to this day, most environments that like Counter-Strike players play in, for example, are famously quite cold. They have those hand warmers because you play in in like air-conditioned studios and stage environments. So if anything, you even could, if you made it out of the right fabric, like Yamato was talking about, you actually could have like hockey-type jerseys, or you could have ones in different fabrics, etc. There's a bunch of actual Counter-Strike players to this day play with those like undershirts, almost like the ones they have in basketball with like the sleeve on your arm and shit. So I feel like you could do so much more than just have it look like a five-a-side jersey, which it does at the moment. Like, I actually think that's underutilized, and especially by the way the logo shit. Like, what I love about those hockey ones is how ball of the massive logo in the middle is. It looks cool. There's no rule on this. Like, it doesn't have to be like football where it's a tiny badge up here. Like, you can do anything you want with it. So I actually think it's underutilized. By the way, actually, you've just reminded me of one as well. It was a few years ago now. It might even have been the 2021. Do you remember that one where G2 had like that special jersey for Worlds with like a samurai dragon type thing all around? That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think it was 2020 I'm thinking of.
I actually have that. Hang on, I actually might be able to go find that jersey if there 1 second.
I think this one did look dope though, because it was explicitly for Worlds. And it was the one that actually they had like Frosco and a bunch of like people pause and sent it out to a bunch of people. I think maybe Ashley Kang had one or something. So if he has it here, it does look, this one did look really cool. Actually, this is still like the Carlos era. You didn't find it?
Okay, I can't find that one exactly, but yes, I do have that somewhere around.
Whatever, you can Google it.
Hang on 1 second.
I don't know if I believe you, bro.
Yeah, sorry, I just pulled my headphones out on the way over there. The other ones which I really like were I think they just showed it up on stream, were the ones which were like the Marvel ones for Team Liquid, where they had each of the Avengers.
2019.
One of the other things was one of the other things about esports jerseys that if you're on the right side of the rift or the right side of things, you don't actually need them for like identification as you would do for color coordination on the pitch. I think that's completely fine too.
Yeah, if people don't know, especially when they had a great Counter-Strike team, they even had it like for example, Nitro was like Captain America because he was the in-game leader, and then Stewie 2K because he was like the little kid vibe, he was Spider-Man. It was even quite cool the way they did it. Oh, I know what you mean. That was actually a pretty good collab, I have to say. And also, spoiler, I think I like either spoke in the advert or wrote the copy, so I'm biased. They also paid me, so guess what? I think that was a brilliant ad. I think it was one of the greatest esports ads ever. Just like I also really like the documentary Breaking Point, which I'm in as a talking head. Brilliant selection of talking heads and just a really great documentary in it. Whatever, anyway. The point is, back to the questions. So the next question is, XL Golly says, with Los Ratones disbanding, can you think of teams who should be looking to pursue the likes of Crowny/Nemesis to upgrade their roster? So who would be an upgrade if they took Crowny and Nemesis?
Thinking about mid laners for LEC. I mean, it really depends where Nemesis wants to go, right? Because he'll want to go onto like a championship caliber roster, presumably, or like a good opportunity. Because initially, well, one of the problems is I would say something like Giant X, because I think Jackie's hasn't been fantastic. But I don't know if Noah and Jun are on there last year. If you did it like right here and now, I would say someone like Giant X. I think that's the easiest upgrade for them. Potentially, you could go to something like Navi as well, because I think that he's probably just pound for pound. You know, I think you can test with someone like Poby as well. So those are the two teams which stand out for Nemesis.
I think if like the big one, if there's a world where like I think Wunder and Mickey have like actually like played pretty well. Well, Mickey, I give him a lot of grace because I do think it's like one of those players when things are bad, he tries to make the winning play regardless of the game state, and I do think like the level of the things that Mickey does is still like some of the highest level that you see in the LEC, and I do think that the games that SK were winning was with Wunder having like a good counter pick, and Wunder looks pretty damn good, I think, based on the sample of SK. I think if SK would have Mickey, Wunder, VicLa, Crowny, Nemesis, I think this team would be monster. So I'm sorry, leader. You know, we greeted each other. We made peace after the Roddy Sack angle, but I do think that like Nemesis. Nemesis is really damn good. I think Nemesis is really, really good, and I think he can keep up with the best in the league. So.
The real problem with this question, obviously, is I think it's not fair to Crowny in the sense that ADC's a super stacked position. There's way less teams, and unfortunately, I can put him on. Nemesis, I could put on a bunch of, like, I'm going to ignore the angle you're doing, Nymaera. I'm just going to do what he said. Like, who would they be an upgrade for? Not would Nemesis agree to join us. Well, I don't think he would accept any of these offers. So I will just say this. I would absolutely put him on GX, SK, Na'Vi, Heretic. I think any of these teams would be better than. I will say, I'm not going to go as crazy as other people. Like, I don't actually know if I would gamble on him over Vladdy fact he's such a young player, still can develop, it seems like he has a flair to him. So there's a bunch of teams I wouldn't put him. I would still put him on like half the teams in the league. I do think the stupidest thing about Los Antones was that was never in question. He was always the most overqualified player to be on that squad. Like Crownie in a way was, but Crownie also the difference is he didn't have the options to go to the LEC. As far as I know, Nemesis had many options to go to LCS or LEC. So I always thought he was overqualified. That's why, as you say, I understand why you bring in, like, realistically, he's probably not going to say yes to any of the teams I just mentioned, unfortunately,
Across the pond, the Lion would be an interesting one, right? Because it's Saint issues. Like, if you just put Nemesis and Inspired together with Berserker, like, that just sounds like that just sounds tremendous. Like, having a big upgrade in the mid lane, I think already solves a lot of their problems in my mind.
Yeah, no, that's a good call, actually. I think that'd be a good one. In terms of, like, yeah, that's the big kind of one which I think would make it from... That would be a real saving move, I think. I think that team's kind of really on death's door right now. That would actually make them into, hopefully, what was promised.
Okay. What about this question, then? So, okay, listen to this question. Nadnerb says, T1 have not made it to an LCK upper bracket final since 2023. Why do you think T1 struggle so much in round 2 of playoffs when they usually don't run into these problems with rusty player drafting until after a break at Worlds?
I think when it comes to T1, it's weird because ever since I guess it's not really weird because it has brought them some success, but ever since they did the whole Danny got fired, Kim got fired, and then they brought in Bengi, and in terms of how the team is ran, like it's so clear that this is a player-driven team in terms of how they draft and how they make the decisions. I think it's very rare that they are like ahead of the curve in terms of where the meta is, because I feel like always they need to play catch up. I remember like the series against HLE that they lost. There's always been that series where they get 3-0'd by HLE. Like I feel like that has happened minimum 2 times. 2 times I remember, maybe it even happened more. But in those series, it was like a wrong read on mid lane prios, being like coping about like what you need to do for your mid laner, and then overreaching completely, being predictable in terms of what you blind, and then teams finding like great opportunities in the punish. And I do think they seem to be very formulaic in terms of how they draft. And when teams are aware of that, I think that the punish needs to hit them in the mouth before they kind of adjust. I think there's an element to it that is also that under pressure, under the gun, under elimination, I think that they manage that pressure better than other teams. Not necessarily that they play a lot better, but I do think losing is the thing that makes them correct in terms of the draft the most. And I do think this is common in player-driven teams. And I do think that's the case for T1 too. And other teams that are under the gun and under that pressure tend to also perform a little bit worse, I think, when they don't have like that extra life. We saw that in KT versus GenG, and then they played GenG again and they got 3-0'd. Some losses only happen once, and I think often for T1 it's preparationary. Just to bring back that HLE example, everyone remembers when they played like Vayne, and then they had like full range comp with Vayne on Zeus, and then the enemy team was just like picking Corki mid and chilling and taking it easy, and then T1 was kind of scrambling to put Faker in a position to be comfortable. And I do think that they need to go through that process in order to kind of kick things into gear and to like come in at it again in the right way and a better way.
Yeah, I think they inherently play quite a risky style, which adds more into that prep thing as well. You know, if they're playing around objectives where they want to play hyper aggressive on retaking the pick, going for the flank angles, if you don't have a really solid idea of laning matchups is a separate thing. But if you don't have a solid idea of the matchups you want to play and how that transfers into objective play early on into a patch, which often playoffs are, right? Because their first matchup, which will then get them into the upper bracket. That's where they're weakest before they've completely cracked the matchups and their ability to thread the needle in those fights. So I think part of it's a part of their playstyle as well, as compared to what I would say most of the other teams in the LCK play a more consistent bleed out around objectives, which T1 have chosen to not go towards ever since about 2022 when they lost their MSI to RNG. That's been kind of like their lifeblood since then, kind of playing the more risky smoke and mirrors, flanking tactics, big bombastic engages. But if you thread the needle wrong, obviously it goes very, very poorly. So if you haven't got the correct read, which is more likely to happen early in playoffs, that can cause issues.
Bearing in mind, he is already talking about a couple of years. I actually don't think it's as much of a mystery. Like, first of all, this one's the outlier because realistically, we don't even know that Fearx are the third or second best team. The difference in the other years was domestically, T1 really were sometimes the third best team. Like, sometimes Animal Life was as good directly against them, or they were actually at times even the best or second best team. I don't think that's even unreasonable. It's why T1 fans will never get this. You ruin history for yourself when you say at the end of the year that T1 must be the best if they win Worlds, because now you have to explain why they don't win all the other tournaments. To me, it's quite. I'm totally at peace with it that they're awesome in Worlds playoffs and then they're not that good domestically, or they're just second best domestic. I think that's not even that unreasonable a storyline. I think it has a sense to it. Like, they seem to be more clutch in single in playoffs. They seem to be better at Worlds where all the pressure's there. They've also, a bunch of them have also won Worlds. That's another thing people maybe don't appreciate is, like, when you're playing domestically, you don't really think about it on the same stakes in that sense. Like, actually, I think in these matches, especially the double LCK playoffs, if you're as good as they are, you'll probably still be in the final anyway. You just will be. Like, and you'll improve from this and you'll figure some draft things out from it. It's not the end of the world that you lost this match. So I don't think it's that crazy. Like, here is a question, though, that has a lot of potential. So I want to see where people go on this. Big Boy says, what is your worst airport/flight travel experience?
Oh, I've got a couple for this. There was, on my way back from 23 Summer Finals out in Xi'an, I had a 5-hour layover meant to be... so I was going to fly down from Xi'an down to Beijing, then Beijing back to Berlin. I had a 5-hour layover. My flight coming in, the first one, was 5 hours delayed. So I had to, reminded this was still when COVID was still somewhat around. This was with, like, some of the paperwork when you travel to China can sometimes get a little bit iffy because there's some gray areas, particularly if you're like going in on short-term notice and whatever. So they had to take my bag out of the hold and put it into the cabin and just be like, look, when you get to Beijing, you're going to have to fucking sprint to the next plane. Otherwise, we won't get you a flight for another 2 days and you're going to be stuck in Beijing alone for like 2 days. And that's the only time I've ever had to sprint for a flight. Did manage to get in. Basically, as I was running through it, the airport attendant was just put in random stuff for like your visa form or like your COVID form. Just put in random stuff. Just get it done and just flash it. It'll be fine. So that was probably... And I was flying alone, of course, there too as well. So that was alone halfway across the world, sprinting for a flight. And if I didn't make it, I would have been on my own. Similarly, start of last year, I had to change my ticket home because I was out in Thailand at the start of last year. And I had to change my ticket back because I got picked up for LEC. That was fairly unexpected. And I was initially playing like, well, fuck it, I'm going to stay out and have a long holiday in January because I haven't had one for forever. And I had to change my flights back. We were going through a travel agent and they made a mistake. So instead of changing my flight back, they cancelled it. So I went up to the desk in Bangkok airport on my way back. The rest of my family had gone on to go to Phuket. And they were like, yeah, you're just going to have to like wait and just see if a ticket opens up. Oh, and if it does work that way, you won't be able to take your luggage back. Luckily, very, very luckily, they managed to basically get me like a staff ticket instead because the thing was meant to be full up. So I've had two instances where I was probably going to be stranded, but ended up just about bailing out in the last minute, like halfway around the world.
You have a good one, Yamato?
Yeah, Roy, like there was this flying home from Japan. I am flying through Turkey, right? So we arrive to the airport, the flight is delayed. Okay, we're cooked. We know already from the get-go that our flight, when we arrive, we're gonna miss that too. Because we're waiting, they're stalling. I'm sweet talking, the person at the counter, checking if can you upgrade us to first class, whatever. He's like, oh, I can give you more leg space, whatever, the usual, trying to squeeze the situation, be nice to the people that are just delivering the information as I'm watching other people just screaming at them and being pissed, right? And then we arrive to the airport in Istanbul, and we are supposed to get comped, basically, hotel, whatever. And we are... Basically, they tell us you need to go to the other side of the airport. So we're just walking for 30 minutes. We just came off a flight, 12-hour flight, whatever, 10-hour. And we just have to walk for 30 minutes. And then we're just waiting at this counter with maybe like 50 other people, waiting at this counter as they are supposed to give us information on where we are just staying at the hotel. We had to fly 5 a.m. It's 12 at this point in time. And I'm thinking, okay, there's going to be a hotel at the airport. It's going to be easy peasy, no problem. We're just going to pop in there, have a little nap, and then fly, no problem. We wait. 30 minutes go, 40 minutes go, 1 hour goes, 1.5 hour goes. I'm starting to complain. I'm like, what the hell is happening? We need to, like, well, what's the point of this? We are leaving soon. They're like, okay, we have your hotel. You just have to take this bus. And then everyone walks to the bus. We get into the bus, and I'm thinking, okay, this bus probably just takes us to somewhere else at the airport. This bus takes us 1 hour away to a hotel. 1 hour away. So at that point, it's like it's 2 a.m. at this point. I'm like, we're flying in 5 hours. Like, I mean, 3 hours. What are we doing here? And then I get to check into the room. I drink the Sprite that is in the fridge. And then my fiance takes a nap for 20 minutes. I don't want to lay down because I think we're going to get screwed. Like, I'm super tired at this point. And then we have to leave, take another 1 hour bus to the airport, and then fly. But then, as I'm in the bus, the guy who works at the reception runs out and says, hello, you have to pay for the Sprite. I'm like, you motherfucker. I have to go back inside, pay for the Sprite. And then, like, this whole experience was just so completely pointless. And then we go back, we fly. And then, you know, this was just a bunch of suffering. I could have slept in a chair at the airport and just be done with it. But we just got trolled by Turkish Airways.
By the way, I have to ask a question because I've done too many talk shows, right? Yamato, in the past, have I ever answered a question where I told a story about the time that I had a flight rerouted to the island of Guam? Have I ever told you this story?
I don't think you have.
Right.
I've not
this
heard
story
this.
is actually fucking mental, but I must have just told it on CS shows. So basically, about 10 years ago, because it was actually an event at the beginning of 2015, there was an event they held at the Winter X Games, which at the time was being held in Aspen in Colorado. And at the time, I was actually living in Korea, in Seoul in South Korea, where I was just choosing to live there because it was up to me where I wanted to live, and I just worked the Counter-Strike events. And it wasn't even doing any work in Korea. I just did online journalism, etc., and doing something inside, etc. So it was the first year where I was like fully freelance. And basically, I was hired to work this event at the X Games. It was an MLG event. And so the flight leg going out there was fine. What happened was you flew the other way. You flew from Korea to, I think it was San Francisco to Denver. Denver then goes to Colorado because the one from Denver to Colorado is literally like out of a movie where you're in like a really small plane and then there's all snow coming out. You're like, this is how I die. Brilliant, great. Like I should have learned from all those fucking VHM documentaries about people dying in small planes. Like, shit, this is how it goes down. So I'm coming in, right? And you know how it goes when you travel to an event. You only really care about the flight out because you think, well, look, in the future, I haven't even come back yet. I'll worry about getting back when I'm coming back. There's no pressure on the way back, right? On the way back, there was only one change, which was that instead of doing it where you went to like, remember, I came from Seoul, Korea to San Francisco to Denver to Aspen, and I'm at the event. When I'm coming back, my flight has been booked as I go from Aspen to Denver, but then from Denver I go to Japan and then I go to Korea. So I go like slightly past Korea and then I go back. Oh, whatever. In the end, not that many more hours. The problem is this, right? There's two details to this which make this story mental, right? One is because I have just gone freelance for the first time in about 10 plus years in my career, where before this I'd worked for like SK Gaming for a number of years, and then I'd worked with a website called Team Acer, is basically Acer, the laptop developers, etc. Had like an esports team, and then after that I actually worked with someone called On Gamers, which was like a massive mega site that was like a vertical of a tech site, CBS, etc. And anyway, now I was doing a bunch of freelance work. I'm living in Korea. I've only done a month or two of it, and one of the things I did that actually made me the person you now know as a content creator was back then when I started the Thorin's Thoughts series, which only began in 2014, like a few months before this. I started it like anyone would do a video essay thing. You just do the odd video where you have some thoughts about something like, hey, this new team, maybe they should change this, what's going on this map. What I decided I'd do when I was doing freelance was I would just see how much content can I output. Like I'll set myself a challenge. So what I was doing at exactly this time before I went to this event was I was trying to do a streak of Thorin's Thoughts videos. Every day I wanted to record a Thorin's Thoughts video and upload it. And I was doing it across every topic, you know, old school shit from Quake, modern things about League of Legends, something from Counter-Strike. And even when I was at this event, I was still religiously, even at the end of a work day of a full Counter-Strike event, going back to my video. There's even videos on my YouTube channel of me sat in a bed because I'm so wrecked, just doing videos about fucking CS stuff. And at this event, right, listen, I had my streak of each day a Thorin Starts video, not a video, a Thorin Starts video. The streak was at something like 50 videos in a row. And even during this motherfucking event, I'm doing it. And are you ready? Because I know when I'm going home, I'm going all the way to Japan and back, and it's going to be plus 1 day. I prepare in advance. I have an extra video. It's reserved already. And all I have to do is get to that airport in Japan, quickly set it live, and it'll do it within 24 hours, and the streak continues. So get ready for how literally God and whatever Korean Air decided they had to stop my legendary streak in esports. Because I get on the plane coming back from Aspen, right? I come back from Aspen, I go to Denver, and the flight's going to Japan. But it's one of those ones where that flight gets delayed like 3 hours. Now, it's still the same flight. You get on the same plane. I probably just hadn't arrived as the plane or something, you know. Maybe there was weather issues too. They're like, sorry, but it's been delayed 3 hours. Now I'm thinking, there's no problem. We're already going to Japan and then going to Korea, which is just a hop over. So we get on this plane, and I'm normally not that good at sleeping, especially not back then. But I get on the plane, and I think, right, well, I've got like 10 hours now. So I sit back, I put the, you know, the eye mask on. I actually fall asleep. And like something, this is obviously where I exited reality and entered the Twilight Zone, because I get woken up by like a sound. It's like turbulence or whatever. And then the pilot for real's going like, ladies and gentlemen, we're just having some problem with turbulence here. We're going to have to reroute the flight to Guam. And when he says it, I remember just thinking, is this a dream? Because I don't even know where Guam is. What? Guam? And at the time, by the way, this is like 2015, so we don't all have like smartphones where we can look on the internet. I'm just like, okay, Guam. Turns out, by the way, I've only learned this now after going there. Guam is a small island in like the Pacific Ocean that actually is technically a territory of America, believe it or not. So we reroute the flight to Guam. Yeah. We go there. They have all, by the way, they all have TSA, all American shit, even though the actual, what Guam looks like is like Hawaii or something. It's all like islanders and fucking, you know, fucking grass skirts and shit. So we were there. It's all, again, like Yamato, the layover is like exactly 3 hours. Now, that's designed by someone to torture a human being, because in 3 hours layover, you can't go to a hotel, have a rest, have a nice meal. By the time you do that, you're going to have to turn right back and go back. And we all know in airports, you're never quite sure how long does it take to get back through the airport, through security, to get to the thing. How big is the airport? I don't know. Again, at the time I am on the ground in Guam, guys, I still don't know what Guam is or where Guam is. I just know I'm in Guam. That's all I know. Guam may as well be another planet at this point in time. So anyway, this all happens when we're there. Eventually, after like 5 hours in Guam or whatever, we set off again to Japan, and this is a banger. When we arrive in Japan, they're like, sorry about this, gentlemen, but there's been a delay for the flight back to Korea. And now there's like a 5-hour delay. So eventually I get back to Korea, and I'm not even joking. When I get back to my apartment in Seoul, I do that thing where you like look at the phone, and it's like 3 days later. It's 3 days since I took off. And not only is it 3 days, and I've just been, and I feel like I've been around the world. I've like sailed around the Horn of Africa or something fucking mental with Captain Cook or some shit. Not only do I feel like I'm like 500 years out of date, but even better, I've literally just ruined that streak by 2 days just because of all this Guam, Japan bullshit. And at the end, my streak was busted. It was all ruined thanks to them. Now, I've got one other one. I've got a small one for you. This isn't my story, but I'll quickly tell you this one, because this one's funny if you know this person, right? Yamato, have you ever heard the story about the time Richard Lewis got trapped in Charles de Gaulle Airport in France?
No.
What?
Right? If people don't know British sense of humor, we have this really harsh thing, right? Where even though if something happened to me, like think about that story with me with Guam, that was really horrible. I had to go through that. I had to experience it. I would expect you to all be sympathetic. But if your mate gets wrecked, it's really funny somehow. And it's like, lol, I'm bad triggered as well. Somehow we have a fucked up thing in our culture. So sadly, I think this story's hilarious. Richard Lewis, about like 13 years ago or something, was going to an event. It might even have been like, somewhere in Europe, but you had to do a stopover in Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris or whatever. I assume it's close to Paris. And basically, in Charles de Gaulle Airport, which he already hated anyway, he goes down like an area into this area. And this is real. Goes to a toilet. When he comes out of the toilet, again, tell me this isn't some like Philip K. Dick. There's like architects of our simulation entering the simulation to fuck with us specifically. Because when he comes out of this toilet and attempts to exit that part of Charles de Gaulle Airport, in the meantime, in the hour that he's been in the toilet, someone's constructed an entire prefabricated wall blocking off the area of the airport he's in. He looks around. He is the only person in this area. There's just a wall there now where he was supposed to go. He's going to the wall. He says there's not even anyone close by. He's like banging on the window, like, help, help. And some like, old ass, like, guy with a mop comes over like, hey, what are you doing back there? You're not supposed to be there. Say, I know, I was just here. They put a wall up. And that guy is even trying to tell him, like, you have to go around. Say, I can't go around. They built a wall. I can't get out. And essentially, this guy has to take mercy on Richard, like release him from this like artificial trap he's just been put in. And then that's just the story. God. It's pretty good doing it. That's a fucking mad one too. Fuck. That's a mad one. Yeah. Anyway, here's another question. Right, you know what? I'm going to ask this just because Yamato's here, because it's so ridiculous this fan would even ask us. But you know what, Yamato? Fuck it. This is for you, man. All right. Speaking of people like Rookie, people we can't, Jack, people we just can't quit. Listen to this story, Yamato. The dog says, Bo just made an insane solo queue run to rank 1 the other week. Do you think if you dropped Bo and Doinby, assuming Doinby took the time to get into form, onto one of the top-end LPL teams, they could win a split/international? Which team do you think would suit them best? So, Yamato, what about if Bo was back? What if he's back?
Hey, to be fair, though, when he played in LPL, he was insane.
He was pretty good. He was pretty good. And this is with Doinby. He's trying to recreate the magic. He's trying to get Doinby out.
You know that Doinby is currently playing Dota because he can't stream LPL. So he's dropped like 2,000 games of Dota because he can't even play League right now.
Why can't he play League? What happened to him?
Well, he can't stream League because the platform. This is I saw some rumors about it on Twitter, but he's playing a load of Dota because I don't think his streaming platform has co-streaming rights to LPL, so he can't stream LPL, so he's playing Dota instead because he doesn't have his LPL fix, basically.
And this is the guy we are.
So he's played like 2,000 games of Dota, man. Okay. So you're playing with Dota B and Bo.
Okay, so where do we drop him, Nymaera? Pick a team. You pick it. Let's assume they're amazing.
Oh, Jesus.
Assume they're amazing.
I mean, given the problems with jungle for JDG, maybe there. Yeah, I mean, JDG, I mean, Honky's been fine, so Doinby would be a side grade, I guess. But I think that GenG is probably the worst performing jungler on a top team, so it might actually have to be JDG.
I feel like with Elk, it's kind of cold. They have Elk and Bo, and then Doinby. They need some...
Oh, on Weibo.
No, sorry, not with Elk. I was thinking of Gala.
Yeah. But however, Elk might be the best AD carry in the world right now. That guy's a fucking demon. But GenG has been really important to Weibo, so I wouldn't want to fuck with that. I think it probably is JDG. I mean, you could just get the easy win of like top esports because they're just like they're a weird team anyway. I mean, like, yeah, Nio's actually been pretty good recently, but that would probably be not bad. How much would I piss you both off to say in IG? How much would I piss you off to say
honestly, that? If Rookie gets a better team, like, why not?
Yeah, Rookie's actually freed in this equation.
If I'm being cynical, maybe I just take LNG, pop those 2 players in there. Not
that's
a bad roster.
True. Yeah,
not a bad roster, boys. That could go.
It's not a top team, but it would actually arguably make them into one. That's actually not a bad call. I don't mind that. Like you still get
by the way, immediately, even when you say he's played Dota, I'm just imagining Doinby playing Dota like he played League. You know, he's like actually timing everything. He's typing like fucking motivational speeches to players while flashing in on mid, like fucking hell, you know, give me a break. Blinking in with the blink dagger there, whatever. With heroes. Yes, I know all the trigger words, don't worry. By the way, there's a little side story for you. I actually did about 10 years ago do some Dota 2 videos. By the way, I follow Dota 2, like it's actually an esport I don't work in. I just follow it for fun. I actually always enjoyed watching the game. But the joke is, I did do a few videos where, just out of sheer habit in interviews and videos, I did keep referring to the characters as champions and trigger the fuck out of all the Dota fans. I'm like, actually, they're called heroes. I think you'll find they're called heroes. It's like, what does it really matter, mate? Anyway, so what champion were you playing in draft form? I'm like, just do that over and over again, trigger the fuck out of them. Right, here is another question for you boys. This is phrased in such a sus way, but I'm just going to ask it. Right, Fede says, have you ever fallen in love with a lone player? I assume he means, especially because Yamato actually works in teams, I'm going to assume he means a player that was on loan to a team. Did you ever like think he was really awesome, even if he was like, going to have to go back or something? I'm assuming he doesn't mean actually fall in love. So we're going to have to, what player's ever been on loan that we've fallen in love with? All right, technically, I've got one for you. Technically, I don't know if he was on loan. I guess technically Milky Way, that one split was sort of on loan from RNG or whatever. Tell you what, I was absolutely in love with him. I still can't even believe that didn't work out. I have never seen a player just smurf like that out of nowhere and then just go back to being just good or normal. It's mad, isn't it? It'll never make sense. It'll never make sense.
This is a deep cut because I don't actually think the team were better, but it was just around the time when I started watching League, and this is it was the first international event I watched live, but Link, when he was playing for C9 at All-Star 2014, that was just a fun that was my introduction to Cloud9, really. Like, I did go back and watch a lot of 2013 games, but I didn't really get to see that much of them. So for that, specifically for my nostalgia and memories of it, Link on Cloud9 for 2014 All-Star was actually quite a special time because that was one of the first live events which I watched there.
I guess a funky one, a technical loan, not really a loan because he was just temporary, but like when Wunder came back into Fnatic, when Oscar took his hand, I thought that Wunder was just the best top laner in the league at that point. Like, he was playing so well, and I think that he played better than BB in the final, and he just had that in him to just snap back and to come in. I think that that to me, I think like Wunder is one of those one-of-a-kind players, and anytime he has the opportunity to showcase that, I think that he delivers. So I think that was like an absolute insane run, because I don't think there's any other player that can just do that. Like, even what DPLUS did, like coming in and just like revamping the team, that's not a technical loan, right? But it's like just coming in last moment when it's not planned and just like fixing things. I think that's the angle I go for, because it's like loaning rules only happen in LPL. You're not allowed to loan players anywhere else. So there's not a lot of examples really outside of the LPL.
Okay, that'll be it then. That'll be it for the questions. Much like NLC casters, Nymaera finds out mid-split his services are no longer required, but the difference is he will be paid.
It's fun.
I'm losing my job. I know it's awkward, but we've decided to go in a different direction. This is actually a very natural thing for broadcast.
Just take me out back and shoot me already.
Right, that'll be it.
It's been a pleasure.
You might see him on Power Spike. There you go. How about that?
Yeah, you go. Yeah.
Cheers, boys.